Hello, this is Fear Dragon, and welcome to Breaking Out, the show by North American StarCraft 2 players. Every Friday and Saturday, we'll highlight an up-and-coming North American to learn more about their personality and their playstyle. Over 4 weeks, we'll take a look at 8 players before they participate in the Breakout Invitational for over $1,000. Let's learn a little bit about the next Breakout player.
Okay, so breaking out NA Season 3 application. What is your name, Samuel, age, and StarCraft 2 race? 19, Zerg. Currently in school. Describe your playstyle for us. Playstyle is very relying on your opponent not being an idiot, right? Because lots of people are like, oh, well, I hope he's, happening not to pay attention right now. Stuff like that. I don't like silly gambles. Silly, uncalculated gambles, rather. Why do you deserve the chance to be the next breakout player? So, I've been playing StarCraft for 3 years-ish now, sounds about right. And I've been just going up the entire time. I haven't taken any breaks whatsoever. You always hear about those people who are like, oh, I'm gonna take or people are like, I'm tired of StarCraft, oh, I went to play League for a while. No, none of that. I didn't do any of that. I went from Complexity Academy to main team, so that shows progress and improvement. I have #passion, as evidenced by the fact that for MLG Anaheim, it wasn't my team that paid for the flight. It was, I guess technically it wasn't me either. It was my parents, but the fact that I went up to them, convinced them, etc., tried to get things going for me, tried to go to a LAN, etc. I'm actually going to Red Bull Detroit this time, thanks to my team. Yay! And yeah, what does StarCraft mean to you? It's basically outside of the life that I have to have. It's the most important thing. I practice, try to get better. Basically the same as everybody else, except I really get a lot of, I get my high off improvement. It's a intelligent plus noble game, if that makes sense. And I just think it's just so dense that I really just want to get more into it. As I have been spending lots of my time on. Obviously, I'm not the top tier level of player, and that's furthermore evidenced by the fact that here I am making this application. I'm not, as the thread said, Ace or Scarlet or E.G. Huck. I've been playing mainly on the Korean ladder, and not going to give any hints about who I am or what I've been doing over there. But I also just spent a week in the Invictus Gaming team house, working really hard, and even within that week of time, I've noticed a significant amount of improvement just off the overall environment, not just the pressure to do better in practice while you're in a team house, but the fact that it's really nurturing, the fact that every time you lose, there's somebody who can give you some tips right away and have some sort of automatic improvement rather than trying to figure things out all by your lonesome, which can be a lot more difficult. What does StarCraft mean to me? It's the next big thing other than the life that I have to have, and it's a sense of, a test for me to see how far I can go in something that's just you, right? Yeah. So that's my application in a nutshell, and thanks.
Hello everyone, welcome to Breaking Out, the show by North American StarCraft 2 players that you need to know about. Today on the show, we actually have a member of Complexity Gaming. It is going to be Samuel Midday.
Whatever.
But yeah, welcome to the show, and for those who don't know, Breaking Out is a show about North American StarCraft 2 players that we feel you need to know about. They're up and coming in the scene, and they're going to very likely be on the verge of breaking out. So, Midday, let's talk a little bit about you, man. You were one of the invites, and I have something to ask you, man. Because you said something in your application video. You said, okay, I'm a Zerg player, and my playstyle, well, I don't really want to be metagamed. So I rely on my opponent not being an idiot. What the heck does that mean, man?
It means like okay, this is just an example, but like say my opponent has like 6 high templates just sitting there, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And I have like a bunch of mutas and he has like 10 cannons with it. I'm not gonna bum rush, snipe the Templars, and run away hoping that he's not gonna storm, right? Because that's just assuming my opponent's an idiot.
So
Because I've seen it happen. Like the Protoss player, like they will be streaming and they'll say like, "Who does that?" Like after all their high Templars die, they're not paying attention.
Yeah, and you also said like you didn't want to get really metagame by just explaining everything about your playstyle. Do you feel like you have a playstyle that can be metagamed if people?
I feel like every playstyle can be metagamed.
How do you feel about ZVZ right now?
Mixed feelings. Sometimes I play really well. Sometimes I play really bad. Sometimes it just comes down to what my opponent does. Sometimes it comes down to me like misclicking. Like sometimes I'll play really standard and I'll scout, say like an all-in or something, and then I'll have everything ready for the all-in, and then I won't click on the main lane because my hand won't listen to me, and then everything blows up, and I'll be like, well, that was a waste of energy.
Is it more of just like you feel like there's parts of the matchup that you don't fully understand or something, or is it just like you understand it but you're having trouble executing on those ideas? Like,
it's the execution. The control is shitty. Yeah, basically.
What do you feel is like your general playstyle in the matchup? I'm asking you guys so you can let everybody metagame you.
It's funny because the answer I'm going to give is the most metagameable playstyle, mutas.
Mutas. That's so interesting because I've heard so many players like they're so on the fence about them. Some players are saying, you know, since the sport color change, don't even bother. Just roach all day long. That's all you really need. And some players are saying like they think that mutas are viable, not as good, but like they're still viable. So you sound like you're saying, I assume that you like believe that mutas are fairly viable then, right?
Oh, yeah, I think they're absolutely viable. Yeah, I've been getting lessons from Saxony, and he's been really helpful. And lots of the build order counters and metagaming and stuff, he actually really helps me against. Like the strategy Hedgelisk used to beat Scarlet for the Challenger League was +1 Carapace stuff.
Oh yeah,
against the mutas, and Saxony has really been helping me, stay on even ground when I'm going mutas against somebody who's going +1 Carapace. Lots of the build order counters are mitigated by his help, and I'm not sure what I would do, mainly because I haven't tested it, but I'm not sure what I would do. That thing that TLO did against Scarlet in ATC, where he like built fucking spore crawlers on her creep. It's
oh, that's so cruel.
I'm not really sure what I would do against this, but maybe
Don't
I should
spread
try.
your creep. That's what I would do.
Yeah.
Oh god.
That's what Saxony told me too. He's like, only spread creep to your third. That's it. Don't do anything else. I'm like, oh, okay.
That's so interesting. I never thought about that. Oh man.
Yeah.
So I mean, okay. It sounds like for the most part then, like if your big concern in ZVZ is maybe the small execution, like accidentally like mistargeting like the wrong baneling or something, or like accidentally running your Zerglings into banelings or whatever. That's the early game stuff, right? It can happen in the late game, but like that's mainly like the early game stuff. But you feel more comfortable when you can get into that late game mode and you can start getting out the massive number of mutalisks.
Actually, when you go mutas, it's suicide to keep building them. And I even felt this way when mutas were still really strong, like before the sport crawler buff. But going Roach, Hydra, Infestor, it's still a better composition. The composition is still going to kick the shit out of like the mutas, even when they were, at full power back then before the sport buff. Because I had those games like very occasionally, right? Because usually you don't let them get to that point. But it's like, oh, everything just got fungal. That's a shame. I guess I'm dead now. So, yeah. One thing I will mention that Saxony did tell me is that when I told him, I'm like, I don't want to learn this Roach play style. He's just like, really? I'm like, yeah. He's like, mutas is harder to do, takes more multitasking, way more control, and a different sense of game knowledge to do. And you still want to go mutas? I'm like, yeah. He's like, okay. Well, here's how you do it then. I'm like, okay. I like my map control.
Map control, okay.
Right, it's better to, like, for a long time of the game, if you have mutas, you can put whatever you want, wherever you want, right? Like, sometimes when I try not mutas, and my opponent like goes mutas for whatever reason, because that happens to me. I won't have any map control, and then occasionally, you know, the odd game, I'll have like the guy freaking Rambo from some corner of vision that I have no vision from, and then all of a sudden half my army gets blown up because I have to be defending everywhere at once from mutas, and I'll be like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, well, this is teaching me never to do anything other than mutas.
If you had to identify one strength and one weakness in your Zerg versus Zerg, what would those two things be?
One strength is muta versus muta, and one weakness, I'd have to say either going roaches or on that note also going gasless and defending Ling Bane Almonds.
Fair enough. Well, we'll see how well those strengths and weaknesses actually play out in the replay that you sent in. So guys, we will be right back.
It's game time! Zerg versus Zerg.
Hello everyone, welcome to the Zerg versus Zerg. My name is Fear Dragon, and I am by myself today because of the replay bug from earlier, and also we're on a new patch from when these replays were played out, so I can't actually watch replays with friends. With that being said, let's go ahead and jump in and introduce the players as we spawn over here on the left-hand side of the map on top of the red Zerg player. Representing Team Complexity, it is Midday. Being his sunny little self, sunny-ish. Sunny-ish. He's not entirely sunny. He's just a little bit sunny. But his opponent, spawning down here in the bottom right-hand corner of the map, is going to be the blue Zerg player. Not representing any team, but he is in fact a celebrity. It is Mandy Moore. I'm actually terrible at celebrities. I don't know if Mandy Moore is a celebrity. I don't actually know who that is. But it sounds like someone who would be a celebrity, and that's the important thing. As long as it sounds like it's a celebrity, they basically are a celebrity, right? Because you feel like you know them. That's honestly how I treat most celebrities these days. It's like, yeah, that name sounds pretty, like, it sounds pretty important. Must be a celebrity. Must be someone really super important. But with that being said, Zerg versus Zerg on our hands here today. And, you know, ZVZ is one of those kind of interesting matchups. It can be super duper hyper aggressive. It could be pretty standard, like we're pretty much seeing right now. I mean, pool first out of Mandy Moore, and we're going to be seeing a hatch first out of Sunny over here. Sunny side up, Midday. Gonna be going for the hatch first. Not the biggest difference between those builds. The only real time that hatch first versus spawning pool first, I think, generally comes into like a really big important play in the match is when you see some sort of early pool shenanigans from one Zerg player and the other player goes for a hatch first versus like a spawning pool first, because sometimes they end up having to sacrifice a hatchery because, you know, hatchery finishes up by the time Zerglings get there, all these kind of crazy things, but none of that happening in this game, so we're not going to worry too much about it. Gas guys are now going down for Midday. Now, this is something that is important in ZVZ because there has been a much bigger rise of the gasless style in Zerg versus Zerg. I don't even want to say recently. It's been happening, I think, for a little while now, but it's definitely something that you have to be aware of on whether or not your opponent is going for that gas first or whether they're just foregoing it entirely. And luckily for Midday, he's going to get the first Overlord scout off. He's going to see no gas guys are over there, no gas mining over here. Boom! He can move out with that Overlord before that Queen pops out, and ideally try and avoid it getting murdered by the Queen, because those Queens do love to murder Overlords. But at the same time, Midday gonna have his Zergling speed up much faster now. What I am expecting to see out of Mandy Moore is to see that both gas guys will be thrown down a little bit later on, but for the meanwhile, he's gonna have to defend with basically just Queens and pretty much just slow Zerglings. He may even decide to get up a Spine Caller if he feels like Midday may get a little bit over eager or over aggressive. But, you know, you can handle the basic general defense. And once you get those two gas guys down, you can do things like throw down an earlier Baneling nest and just prepare against any kind of big Speedling all-ins with the Banelings themselves. So we'll see if Midday actually does commit to anything crazy aggressive like that. One thing that the speed obviously does allow you to do is it allows you to seize that map control. Just because, look, if your opponent is trying to move out with his slow Zerglings across the map, you basically just run your speed. When the slow Zerglings get around here, you run all of your speed Zerglings in, murder everything, and come back home for the defense. It's actually not even funny. So what that means is that Mandy Moore is going to be committed a lot more to the defense, I believe. So that actually allows Midday to do things like this. He gets the third expansion much earlier, and this is what I was kind of talking about. He has the map control, so he can do stuff like this. And look, he's getting that Zergling back in the main base, being like, okay, you didn't just like throw down a lake gas, guys, or do something weird like that. You're not making a bunch of slow Zerglings. You're not going for like some kind of really weird build. No, everything looking very, very standard over here for Mandy Moore, and Midday can feel comfortable in his third expansion, but he's also going to be making a lot of speed Zerglings behind this, because he does know that, you know what, if his opponent is not getting that third expansion just yet, obviously you need Zerglings to deny your opponent from grabbing the third expansion. So I think this move makes a lot of sense to me. He's going to send those Zerglings across the map and see what damage he can do. Now, Mandy Moore has actually an absurd number of queens, up to 5 queens already, so no way in hell that these Zerglings are actually going to be able to break into the main base, but they may be able to pick away at the... Oh, it looks like they're going after the spine call. I was going to say maybe going after some of the drones, and yeah, he's going to try and target fire down some of those drones, but realizing not a whole lot going to happen against this. Man, oh my god, a 6th queen pops out. It is now... a queen, I don't even know. This is like an entire, this is multiple kingdoms actually. If each queen rules a kingdom, the kingdom of the hatchery, and they're actually all fighting over which hatchery. These 2 queens are racing to inject apparently. But again, I want to note that Mandy Moore still has not been able to take that third expansion, because again, he does not have that Zergling speed. Now he is finally actually getting up to a relatively healthy drone count and everything, and he's been able to finally grab those 2 gas geysers. Now the early queens that he's made, honestly, I almost am wondering if it set him behind in how much tech he should have or something. He just has so many queens right now, and yeah, he can do things like get an absurd creep spread, but I mean, it's ZVZ. Do you actually want absurd creep spread? I guess creep spread is nice, but it also does speed up your opponent's units as well. The main thing is that it'll just grant you vision. But it is still a very, very weird situation. I feel like this hatchery could have gone down maybe a little bit earlier if he did not have quite as many queens. But now he's going to try and get that third hatchery up. But Midday is actually going to be going for the cancel on it. Can he actually kill it up? Oh, he does force the cancel out. And wow, those Zerglings end up losing their life, but for a good cause. Delaying that third expansion, I mean, you have to remember, this hatchery has been up for quite a bit of time. And now you can also see Midday finishing up his lair tech, whereas Mandy Moore just starting it up. I mean, I'm searching really hard for the ways in which Midday isn't just straight up ahead. Yeah, there are some roaches out over here from Mandy Moore. Guess what? There are more roaches out from Midday. There's more drones available from Midday. The only thing that Midday is not actually leading in right now, quite frankly, is queens. So I'm honestly just straight up like numerically really liking Midday's position. He's done a very good job of just kind of saying, you know what, I'm going to get this lead with the speed Zerglings. I'm going to take my earlier third. I'm going to deny your third. And I'm just going to play greedy behind it. Like, after he's made those Zerglings, like, he hasn't really made a ton more. He didn't make any more Zerglings after those 14 extra Zerglings that he made to deny that third expansion. He sacrificed those for a good cause and got further ahead with them. And now he has the big roach lead. He's moving out across the map, leading up a solid 18 roaches. 22 roaches does beat 4 roaches. Now, there are a lot of roaches actually on the way over here for Mandy Moore, but is going to be enough? Is his personal bodyguard entourage going to be enough for the queens? I think that the queens themselves are going to have to get involved in this battle. Maybe some sick transfuses could help him out a little bit. Some spine crawlers, a lot of spine crawlers going down as he realizes what a weird and awkward situation he's going to be putting himself in. And actually, the Zerglings don't even have Zergling speed over here for Mandy Moore. Midday just going to be packing back up. He knows that he has the Galileo Reconstitution. He can move a little bit faster, especially on the creep. Actually, the creep hurting Mandy Moore a little bit, and both of the spawn cars just get sniped off immediately. Now, a nice concave setup over here from Midday. The Queen's going to be helping out quite a bit in the battle. They could throw down a couple transfuses. Some of the transfuses now going down, but again, Midday just has superior upgrades. +1 weapons or missile attacks has already been researched, and look at this. Mandy Moore is basically just losing all of his units. All the Queens go down. The roach count has now dwindled to next to nothing, and Midday is now pushing in. He's going after the roach horn. He's going to cancel Galileo Reconstitution. Oh, that's a painful loss over there for Mandy Moore, and of course he's not going to be able to make more roaches. That's the bigger concern right now. They're on even bases, but Mandy Moore just is incapable of making roaches right now. He has to just rely on Zerglings, I guess, but he's not even making those. He's just making another roach war, and his money is starting to skyrocket, and Midday is just swarming across the map with more and more of these roaches. So one by one, they filter their way in, but it doesn't even look like he's going to need a lot of them, because his roaches are just enough to kill off the spine crawlers, they kill off the remainder of the roaches, and I've got to say, I feel like at this point, Midday has won the day, and honestly, in a pretty decisive game. GG. Not even going to be called, but it doesn't matter because the victory belongs to Midday. And that is going to be the ZVZ. So guys, hopefully you guys enjoyed that. We're going to go into the analysis segment and actually hear Midday's thoughts and why he thought the game turned out like it did. So we'll see you guys there. We'll be right back. Hope you guys enjoyed that Zerg versus Zerg. I'm here once again with Midday, and we're going to be jumping into the replay and getting started. So if you want to go ahead and resume the replay and tell us a little bit about what's been going on in this.
Okay. So this is just the ZVZ I played on the... What ladder was this? What's here?
Oh, could you repeat that?
This is just a game I think I played on the European server.
Mm-hmm.
But it's CBZ, it's Catalina. One thing I immediately don't like already is the fact that it's not a 1v1 map. So even if you open safe and they go like a cheese and your overlord's in the wrong spot, you can still die. It's kind of dumb. So, or rather, it's a lot harder to stop. But yeah, right now I'm at like 130, 135, 140.
Yeah.
I just opened 15 hatch because actually lots of players who are cheese pooling 15 hatches now are still losing because all the 15 hatch player does is sack their nat and then keep playing. But if you get 10-fold Bane, you're obviously still in big trouble. But otherwise, it's okay.
Yeah, it definitely makes sense. So, like, what kind of things do you need to do to react properly to any of those kind of all-ins? What kind of precautions do you take in the early game?
None. I go hatch gas pool. It's like basically the go-to greediest opener in ZVZ. And my precaution is just letting my nat die and starting link speed.
Yeah, that's fair. Like, do you? So you said like it's a 3-player map, so it's annoying if you get scouted, or it's
if you don't scout, if you don't see your opponent's crap coming, if he is doing stuff.
Does that factor into why you also decide to go for the kind of grittier play of like, okay, well, there's a chance that he may not scout me, so it'll take longer for his stuff to get here?
No, he'll definitely know where I am because of if the overlord sees like other overlords. But I just go 15 hatch because like you get a hold. So like I'm at 515 right now and I've taken a 3rd base already because I've identified that he's going gasless.
Right.
So just take like a mega fast 3rd and then there's nothing he can really do about it. I build a round of lings right now. The lings are kind of optional. It just depends on what you think if you think your opponent's going to take damage from them or not. And most of the time I don't, but this time I felt like it was an okay idea. So I just threw lings across and then you just drone it like crazy at this point. I've been taking gas. Yeah, I take 1 more gas and you saturate 2. So my lings are coming in. Kill is fine. Don't really kill anything. Okay, so lings like weren't actually worth it, but
yeah.
Still, they gave me some reasonable control and stopped it from taking it faster. I guess they did force out a couple of lings from him. Like 7 larvas worth of lings. Okay, that was pretty good actually. Because that's
I think you broke up a little bit. If you could repeat that last part.
Actually, he built 14 lings too.
Yeah.
So it's not so bad.
Okay.
So I just drone up my 3rd right now, and I drone it up to like 9. I usually drone up to 8, but I built 1 extra this time. And then you take 4 gases. I should be building a gas in my main anytime soon. Yes. No. Yes.
There we go. Yeah.
Okay. And. Okay, so yeah, I'm just getting single upgrade right now, and I'm just pumping out nothing but roaches because I don't see, like, I only start going back to drones once the 3rd is like 3/4 done, because he could just be building roaches instead of drones for the 3rd.
Right.
You go.
Yeah, you saw that his 3rd base was like super delayed. Not only that, but like he also got a cancel off on it. Are you afraid of any kind of like really big attacks of like massive numbers of roaches or anything just coming and killing you?
So long as I'm constantly building roaches after the amount of drones that I built, I should be fine.
Okay.
So I just apply some pressure, see what I can do. That's like 5 spines a lot.
Yeah.
But I think a fight here anyways.
Okay. But yeah, as the engagement is going down, like it pretty much becomes clear that you just have more roaches. Was there
More
anything?
crap than him,
Yeah. Was it just because of that earlier third base and kind of like the greedier opening you kind of was able to get away with?
My build order, like, if you play Gasless really well, this shouldn't be happening, but did. Not to say that my opponent's bad. He's GM on NA, I know that, but well, I just implied that GM on NA was good, and I know I might get chastised by elitists by saying that.
Oh god.
But
Just
yeah,
for them, whatever.
yeah, well, yeah. I just basically reacted well to his build order, and he reacted badly to mine. Had to build drones instead of those 14 links because he didn't need to build those links. Like the queens, like my links ran away before his links popped. I think he would have been in a much better position, but that didn't happen. So I got a reasonable lead, yeah, and then just units and threw him out, and I macroed pretty well at the same time. You have to consider that at the end of the game, like the game over screen, if you compare his money and my money, it's not quite the same.
Yeah, he definitely has a lot more like minerals and gas and stuff banked also. But yeah, do you have any other kind of final thoughts about the game before we move on?
I found it kind of ironic that despite building 5 spines, I was still able to attack and win. That's all.
Yeah, it's all a little bit interesting, kind of weird, but it does work out. So guys, thank you so much for that one, and we're gonna be jumping back to the interview. Don't go anywhere. Hey everyone, welcome back from the Zerg versus Zerg. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that, but let's talk a little bit about your life right now, Midday, as you are a 19-year-old and you're actually a student right now. Are you in college right now?
You're American, right?
I am American.
I'm in college.
Okay. This is something I'm always really interested in. How do you balance being both a full-time student as well as actually like pursuing this kind of pro gaming career? I mean, you're on Team Complexity, that obviously kind of just goes to show like how much you're committed to making this kind of stuff work.
I kind of don't. It's sometimes things get bumped, but that's just because of my bad time management. I'm just lazy. That's it.
Okay, fair enough. That actually answers that.
I is doing better this school year, but I don't know how it's gonna affect the gaming and stuff because I haven't been practicing as much lately. But we'll see. All right, we'll see.
How does your family feel about your involvement in esports? Are they even aware of it then?
My mom was aware the whole time, and I didn't tell my dad until I was on the Complexity main team.
Oh,
because because Asian parents, and you can't tell them until you're already basically there.
Would you say that your parents have been relatively supportive since then?
There hasn't been much time, and there hasn't been much in the way of things happening for them to demonstrate support or a lack of. So hard to say, but I think I don't think they would be objective to me, saying, hey, I'm going to do this or that or whatever. They're like, they'd probably be fine with whatever I decide to do in the lines of gaming from this point. Yeah, I would imagine so.
This may or may not be on a related note, but you also went to China fairly recently, and you got to spend some time in the Invictus Gaming House, which is kind of freaking awesome. I'm a little bit jealous. But like, why were you there? Was there like another reason? Were you there for like, like a study abroad kind of thing? Or like, was it actually just to be in the Invictus Gaming House? I
was teaching English for a month in China. Yeah, and then with the remainder of my time, I A, saw a doctor, and B, went to the IG house. I think videos will eventually be uploaded to complexitygaming.com, but or YouTube Complexity Insider. But it was really fun. I miss the guys there. They're great. Like all those obscure quote unquote no name people that are in the house, like Cloudy. You ever heard of Cloudy?
Vaguely.
Okay, there we go. Yeah, see, there we go. But when I went into the house, I was really surprised because like the Terran player XY, he hasn't done anything recently, and he's like on nobody's radar basically. Nobody ever mentions him.
Yeah.
And I walked in, and he's like ranked 70 GM on the Korean ladder, which is really high for a foreigner, like really high for a foreigner. So I was like, oh, okay, didn't expect that. And then I walk over to Yasunu's screen, and Yasunu's on the academy team, but he was like the same day that I went there was like a monthly Chinese tournament, and he like 2-0'd or 2-1 max head. And I was like, oh,
Jeez.
okay, that happened too. And he's like top 70 as well. And then later that day, I was watching 4GG stream, and he got rickrolled by the Zerg, and I just turn around and it's Yasunu. I'm like, oh, okay. And everybody inside the house is Korean GM. The lowest player there is like Cloudy, who's like ranked 150-ish, and everybody else is really high. It was really great. The environment and the culture was like basically everything that I was used to. Like instead of Kleenex usually, I just use like rolls of toilet paper, right? And I'm like, it's the same thing. It's just paper. So I just like take off a bunch and blow my nose and whatever. And then when I went there, everybody like had a roll of toilet paper by their desk just for like the purpose of Kleenex. I'm like, it's so great. And the table manners were like non-existent too. Like Jim was like gnawing on like the bone, like the meat off the bone, like an inch from the table. And I'm like, this is great. This is awesome.
So, I mean, like, did you get to practice with them at all?
Some of them, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I sat right beside Cloudy, and I would hit him on ladder semi-often. I would just look over and I'd be like, oh, okay, I guess we're playing each other. And then Yasunu, I played some customs with. He's really, really good.
I'm just going to actually go straight into it then. Like, let's talk a little bit about your Zerg versus Terran. Did you learn anything, first of all, from your time in China, like in your Zerg ZVT, or like, we'll talk about ZVP later.
I learned a new build while I was there, and that wasn't because of the house. That was because of replay study. But I was able to use the build on XY. Mm-hmm. Actually, not through like going up to him and being like, "Hey, do you want to play?" It was a ladder game that I hit him on. Mm-hmm. I didn't know it was him until I was watching his screen later. I'm like, "Oh, that barcode is you." Okay, sure. In terms of ZVT, I would say reasonable improvement. The main improvement I found was just a mechanical improvement. The first 2 games I hit Cloudy on ladder, he beat me both the games. And then near the end of the week during my stay there, we played a bunch of customs, and I basically won every one of them. So I was like, oh, improvement. Okay, sure.
Yeah. Can you talk at all about the build that you learned? This is gonna be like a big secret thing that you're gonna like reveal during the invitational.
Yeah, it's an unscoutable all-in.
Oh,
yeah.
I'm looking forward to this now.
Yeah, it's literally unscoutable. I know some people will call out on me and be like, no, this is StarCraft. Every all-in is scoutable. This one isn't.
That's actually super cool. I'm really looking forward to that now, man.
Yeah.
So say no more. But let's talk about like your standard ZVT. How are you feeling about the matchup?
I feel like that unscoutable all-in, because it's unscoutable and because of the way it works, I can play a macro game off the build. So they don't know if I'm going ham on them or not. So they have to, yeah. I've been playing with that a lot. But the standard, I think I've gotten over time a bit better with it. Like when I was at MLG, there are some players playing standard, and I noticed like some mistakes that they were doing that I used to make, right? And I'm like, okay. I think the bigger part of it is patience. I know that ZVT is a very tempo-based matchup, and it's like the pushes and pulls of the attacks and the defense, and sometimes you get over eager and you want to like counterattack the Terran. He's like, oh, they just lost their entire army to me, basically for free. I guess I can counterattack now and a little bit on my clothes and everything. But it's like, no. But yeah, I've been getting better at that.
If you had to give like a single strength and a single weakness in the matchup, what would it be?
I'll be getting much, much, much better at defending, or rather preventing Hellion run-bys. So I don't think that's a big deal anymore. Just some ideas popping up in my head. I'm like, oh, what if I do that? And then I do them on ladder. I'm like, oh, that worked beautifully. But fucking T-Rex is a piece of shit. When I was at MLG, Thorstein was just like, be sure to ask Saxford what the most annoying what best Terran all-in is right now. I'm I'm like, okay. And I asked him, he's like 2x in. I'm like, okay. And this was right after like the Hellbat changes, so everybody thought that it would be like a Hellbat, like medevac time would not be the strongest thing. He's like 2x, and I'm like, okay, I understand. I know what time to send my drone down to my natural just to check if there's a bunker starting. So I just do that every game, and like I said, safe play style. So I always blind scout 2x's too. I know a lot of players that 2x frequently on NA don't do it versus me because they're like, oh, you might scout it. But yeah, a weakness is unscouted 2x, which doesn't happen too often, but it happens sometimes. Like that bitch who put it out of watchtower vision. And then a strength. Well, there's the unscoutable all in, and then there's I'm pretty good at playing the late game. Yeah, pretty good at late game. I feel like Ultra Queen Infestor Muta is just as strong as Storm Colossus if controlled well, right? Like, because every Terran player is like, oh, Storm Colossus, once they get there, it's basically over. And since Protoss is so imbalanced, they're basically gifted those units for free. And Zerg players, we have to work a little bit harder to get there because usually the game ends before high tech. I think. I don't know the actual math, like the statistics, but that's just the impression that I get. But I'm good at that too. Yeah.
Well, we'll go ahead and check out that Zerg versus Terran. Don't go anywhere, guys.
It's game time! Zerg versus Terran.
Hello everyone, welcome to the Zerg versus Terran. My name is Feirdre, and once again, not joined here by anybody because the replays are beyond this patch, so I can't watch it with friends. But don't worry, you all out there in the audience are my friends, so we're going to enjoy this replay together and learn a little bit about Midday. But spawning down here in the bottom right-hand corner is not Midday. In fact, it is the red Terran player representing Team DIOD. It is Zerg Imba. Dodge, you know that Zerg is Imba. I think that the opponent up here in the top left-hand corner is going to have to say something about that, because he is the blue Zerg player representing Team Complexity Gaming and the highlight player of today's episode of Breaking Out. It is Sunny-ish, aka Midday. And we're going to be learning, again, a little bit more about Midday's playstyle in the matchup. Now, you guys just got out of the interview, so you should know a little bit more about kind of how he feels about the matchup and everything. He did say, weaknesses, 2 racks. All right, this SCV looks like it's going to build an in-base barracks. Okay, awesome. Midday is already off to a good start. But, let's be serious for a second. It sounded to me a lot like there were a couple of maybe all-ins that Terran players could do that would maybe put Midday in a more uncomfortable position, but what he said he felt much more comfortable with was as it got to the later stages of the game. He was talking a lot about Broodlord, Queen, Infestor, Ultralisk? I think those are the units that he named. But basically the super duper late game compositions from Zerg players after Hive Tech, he felt like were pretty much as strong as a lot of the big Protoss death balls that people complain about. So he says as long as he can control it properly, he feels like he's in a very, very good position. And I doubt he would say stuff like that unless he felt like he could control it properly. So with that being said, I'm expecting to see Midday do things that are going to presumably try and take the game to the later and later stages of the game. But he did, of course, also say that he doesn't think that most games in ZVT end up going to the Hive Tech. So I wouldn't be too surprised to just see like Mutalist play out of him. Now, he didn't really talk about it, but there are also some other tech paths they can go into in ZVT on this map, especially. And one of them begins with an S, and the second letter, or the second word begins with an H. It's Swarm Host, and it is actually King Sejong Station. So it's almost impossible to see this map without talking about them, or at least giving them a mention. It's like talking about Cloud Kingdom in a Protoss versus Terran without talking about Blink Stalkers. It's just something you just don't do. You at least give it a little bit of a mention. So we'll see if that actually does come into fruition from Midday. I think that Midday, less likely maybe to go for it. He did say that he kind of likes the Mutalist play, and I wouldn't be too surprised to maybe see him sometimes do like Roach play or Hydra play, but you know, we'll end up seeing. Only time will really tell what he'll decide to go for. Well, if we take a look at our Terran player, pretty standard opening. He went for the Gas Geyser. He's adding on that factory, and of course has already gotten that first Reaper out. Not following it up with a second Reaper. He does have the gas for it, so I'm expecting that this is just going to be a one Reaper expand, and there is the reactor for that good old tech lab. But oh, actually, sorry, I completely misspoke. There is already a Reaper out now, and this Reaper is trying to do some damage over here. Hasn't been able to get off any kills just yet. Spore Crawler being made to avoid the death of the untimely drone. But the two Reapers now going to be popping back in to see what they can do. Just whittling away at that Queen. I like this. This is, you know, some nice little damage. It can kind of take away a little bit of the health. Of course, there is no third Reaper coming back in to back up those Reapers, so it's not really going to be possible for him to just be like, oh, let's just go for the Queen, go for the kill on it. Not really going to happen, so he's going to have to just rely on doing what damage he can with these two Reapers. Now coming back into the middle line, there is a weakened drone or two they can try and go after, but the Zerglings of the Queen gonna make it very, very difficult. Pretty well controlled from both of these players. Neither of them really losing actually anything whatsoever. But a Reaper actually over here may go down. No! Really nice control over there. I should say, really nice timing over there from Zerg Imba. And oh, I like what he's doing. He's just being very annoying with those Reapers, actually. Just keeping them alive, allowing them to move around the map. But behind this, Zerg Imba is actually going for that starport. He's going to be getting up the tech lab and going to be going for the old school Wings of Liberty style Hellion Banshee play. This is a tried true style. The Reaper, oh, not quite getting surrounded. Oh my god, this guy is juking and jiving like a madman. It's actually pretty impressive. And behind this, Midday is just saying, okay, well, I'm going to keep chasing these Reapers. It's a little bit annoying. He's losing a lot of his Zerglings trying to do it, but oh, you might actually get him. No. God, getting juked once again. Got a hand to the Zerg Imba. Does end up losing one of the Reapers, but still very, very well done. And Midday is going to be getting up that third expansion behind all this, grabbing two of his gas guys. It's actually kind of interesting they grabs them at different bases. I kind of like it. It makes it a little bit harder to scout maybe the exact timing of when all the gas guys are being taken. Of course, maybe a little bit harder for organizational purposes. But regardless, Banshee going to be coming out, Cloak on the way as well, and the Hellions are making their way across the map to see what damage they can do. Of course, accompanied by that single Reaper that's looking for revenge for its fallen brethren. Midday started some okay creep spray, but I mean, this has not been a 5-queen opening or anything. He only has 3 queens, and right now they're all at the front trying to get up that defense. So he's missing out on larva injects right now. Well, actually, no. This is actually really well timed out. This larva is going to pop out. There's going to be a small little window of where he's actually not injecting, but immediately that queen is going to pop out and is going to be able to immediately be able to inject. So not a huge loss in kind of larva injects, I would say, by having those queens out for the front. So really well done by Midday in that sense. And behind those, we actually see +1 missile attacks going up. As long as the Roachhorn. Now, he has been going for those wall-ins. Sometimes the Zerg players just like to go for the wall-in, and sometimes they'll get the Roachhorn almost just more as a precaution, because if you don't really know how heavily your opponent is investing into these Hellions. I mean, this is a lot of Hellions to be investing into. And actually, more factories being thrown down. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Like, sometimes you just want the Roachhorn as a precautionary measure, even if you're not really looking to invest into it. But Midday already going for that +1 missile attacks. I think he was already looking to invest into it, going to that Roach Hydra style. The Banshee is actually doing some pretty good damage over here, and the Spore Crawler is actually coming down relatively late over here for Midday. So maybe not entirely expecting this. The Roach is now popping out, though. Going to be able to handle those Hellions, but the Banshee is going to go fairly uncontested in the main for a little bit longer, able to rack up a couple more kills. A lot of the Hellions were able to be cleaned up by Midday, by those Roaches, by the Queen. The Banshee taking a lot of damage from the Spore Crawler. Oh my god, he was actually not paying attention. Ends up losing it. Some nice control and stutter stepping from the Queen as well. Secures the victory on that Banshee, or against the Banshee, I should say. And Midday finally going to be able to clean everything up. And at the end of the day, you take a look at where the Terran player is, and he's done some pretty good damage, I would say. 6 workers killed, and well, actually, okay, I say some pretty good damage, but you can take a look. His worker count is also fairly far behind. He's down just still 38. He invested relatively heavily into all of that, especially having to throw down these extra factories and everything, transitioning into that mech style of play. Now, the Siege Tanks coming out. The Siege Tanks are really, really an interesting choice. I think that a lot of Terran players do like to go for the Siege Tanks against a very Roach Hydra heavy composition. It can work out fairly well if your Siege Tanks are sieged up, but we'll see if it actually ends up working out. Armory also coming down, so probably going to be getting that for the Hellbats. And of course you want the upgrades for your Siege Tanks, for your Hellions, etc. You're making all these mech units, so why not get the actual mech upgrades? Makes a lot of sense. Actually, it'd make less sense if he didn't do it, but in the meanwhile, we take a look at where Midday is sitting, and yeah, just still going for those Roach Hydra composition style getting up a couple of the Hydros, getting up +2 missile attacks, kind of foregoing the Carapace upgrade. Well, actually, no. He does have +1 Carapace upgrades. I was going to say, like, oftentimes I'm not too surprised to see Carapace upgrade being foregone against a very siege tank / mech heavy Terran player, just because, I mean, let's be honest. When a siege tank is doing, like, 60 damage, reducing that damage down to like 59 or like 58 damage, it doesn't actually do that much. Maybe some like more astute players or something can correct me. Maybe Midday can correct me in the analysis segment. That's why we have it. But you know, it never really made a whole lot of sense to me. Might as well get it just if it's there. But I mean, missile attack's going to be a big priority, I think, for Midday. Now we end up seeing all the Hellbats coming in over here to try and put up that big offensive. The Hydra is actually under some pretty big fire, but the Hellbats actually just melt. This is actually not even close. Midday actually just stomps all over this force, and it looks like Zeragimba not quite able to get up the forces that he needs to push in over there. Just gets absolutely massacred. And that was a mech army. Look at how far down in supply he is. Sure, Midday is making roaches. Sure, roaches aren't exactly supply efficient units, but I mean, come on, he's up about 70 supply right now. He's looking to be in a great position. He's just making more and more roaches and hydros. He's going to be able to move across the map. And honestly, I don't know if Zerg Impa is going to be able to defend this third expansion. He's going to have to get up some siege tanks. He's going to have to... I don't even know where he positions the siege tanks. Does he put them at the third expansion? Or he could very well just end up losing them? Does he just sacrifice and say, to hell with the third, I just need to try and survive a little bit longer? The Thor actually target firing an Overlord instead of the units. Does manage to get it back into the fight, but the Banshee's also going down rather quickly to the Hydro's DPS, and no GG even going to be called over here. Midday taking the Zerg versus Terran with, honestly, a very straightforward game once again. Roach Hydra style coming out, and honestly, it kind of just seemed like Midday defended well enough against the aggression early on, and was able to go for the follow push for the Roach Hydras, and it worked. It is just really worked really well, as the Terran player not quite able to have enough units to make it work against what Midday had. So very well done by Midday. We're going to be jumping in the analysis segment to get a little bit of analysis from Midday, pick up on any kind of smaller, subtler things that we may have missed out on. So I will see you guys there. Hey everyone, hope you enjoyed that Zerg versus Terran. I'm here once again with Midday, and we're going to find out a little bit more about that Zerg versus Terran game from Midday himself. So let's go ahead and resume the replay and figure out what was going on in this game.
Okay, playing, and yeah, this map is kind of, I have really mixed feelings about it. I don't know why more Terrans don't attack from the back of the natural. It's such a good place to attack.
Yeah, the back of the natural for like just dropping in with a bunch of units and stuff, or do you mean like the destructible rocks?
The destructible rocks.
Oh yeah.
I don't know why more players don't attack from there. I have to go down from that choke or set up a flank, which takes like forever to set up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is actually really interesting. Do you ever feel like it's worth going for like a lot of counterattacks, even as a Zerg player over there?
It's worth it because you make the Terran do more stuff, but I never do it just because it never actually gets anything done if the Terran has his head up.
Yeah, that's fair enough. All right, so what was the context for this game? Where was this game kind of played and everything like that?
I have no freaking clue. I don't remember it all. And I'm usually really good with remembering games. And I look at this guy's name and I'm like, okay, well, his name is not only wrong, but I don't remember it.
I don't know, man. He's quite correct. But okay, yeah. So like, right now I check my nap with the drone at about that time because if there's a 2-rex that I didn't scout, I'll see the bunker starting. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and then I'll be able to react. I just wanted to mention that.
Yeah. Do you ever get like feel the need to like check your main base and everything for like the bunkers? I know sometimes people get kind of crazy with like how aggressive they are with the bunker placements.
No.
Okay.
Not something that I regularly do.
Yeah, fair enough. All right. Well, Reaper comes in over here. You seem to have gone for like the Zergling speed route. I know that some players have been trying to do more like they delay their gas for a little bit longer. Is there any particular reason why you just prefer the speed route?
It lets you clear the Reapers a little bit faster. It doesn't exactly do anything.
Mm-hmm.
Like clear faster. But well, I guess it kind of does. You know, it gives them less of a window to harass if they are really pokey with their Reapers. The disadvantage, though, is that you have slightly less minerals to make spore collars with, or like just stuff the marker drones into if their control's really good. This guy's really annoying, and he sends his Reapers like everywhere and hops them around.
He does a really good job of keeping them alive.
Yeah.
Um,
It's really obnoxious.
Okay, yeah, but he ends up going for like the tech lab on the starport and everything. Like everything looks pretty standard, right?
Yeah, this is pretty bread and butter. Yeah, except the lack of third CC. I think this guy's just, yeah.
Yeah, this feels almost like more of a standard Wings of Liberty build, right? Like
Yeah,
with the cloak banshees and everything else coming out.
Yeah.
All right, well.
Oh, he's going mech. Okay.
Right, so that's actually brings you into like a really good question that I have, or at least I think it's a good question. I don't know. I think I just complimented myself, but
Go for it.
anyways, like, how do you know generally like when the player is going mech? Like, obviously, I think that seeing this many Hellions should be like some sort of indication of like, wait.
You would be able to tell by if there was an add-on on the racks if I scouted at a normal time, which I didn't. Hence why I'm getting wrecked by these banshees.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, the Banshee's doing some pretty decent damage over there, but just get taken out by the Spore Caller. Spore Caller that you were mentioning before. Very, very helpful. And finally, third CC coming down. So, like, at the end of all of that kind of harassment, you've only lost, like, 6 workers. It doesn't seem like you've actually lost that much. You feel pretty far ahead right now?
Okay, I have to be honest here. I switched machines recently, so I have, like, an awesome, amazing, brand new laptop. And I didn't transfer over the replays, and this was a time where I was like settling into school, so the quality of games that I was able to offer weren't the greatest. This guy's not the greatest player, so it was I'm in a good position, simply put.
Okay, yeah, that's totally fair. Honestly, the idea is that we just mainly want to get an idea of kind of your play style and everything, right? So
yeah.
What just kind of explain like the thought process behind like some of the things you're doing. Like you're going for Roach Hydra on this map, which is quite honestly really well known for Swarm host play. I even really like to see Mutilis on this map, just for the same reason that you were saying you like Terran drops or actually I know you weren't really saying that,
No.
but I really like Mutilis on this map just because of how exposed the natural expansion can sometimes feel. So why do you go for Roach Hydra on this map?
I just felt like it would have been best this game to go Roach Hydra. I'm pretty used to Roach Hydra. I can do like Roach Hydra and Noodling Bane. So this game I just felt like Roach Hydra. There wasn't any particular strategic choice behind it. You can play with either. It's just that Roach Hydra has to do with more timings.
Okay, yeah.
Or rather, if you go Roach Hydra, you have to do timings or you die.
Yeah, it's actually pretty fair. So one thing that you actually said in your interview was how you actually really enjoyed the Mutilis style. So it sounds like you're not necessarily like pinned down to like going Mutilis. You actually are okay with going Roach Hydra.
Yeah, Roach Hydra was something I was vehemently against until they buffed the Hydra's 10% attack speed thing. Because I was like, Roach Hydra is such a bad composition and nobody ever wins with it. And it's true, nobody ever did win with it. Everybody who used it except Hyun in one game ever got tooled with it. And yeah.
And
then after...
And Stefano like a couple times.
And Stefano, yeah.
Stefano when he was tooling around.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
He was like wrecking. I remember in Pro League, he was like going Roach Hydra and the Koreans were like, what's happening? And yeah.
That was pretty fair. But did you have any kind of other final thoughts about the game?
This timing attack isn't gonna. This timing attack normally doesn't work against mech, and it wouldn't have if he didn't move out. His move out would have been pretty. It would have been okay because if I was going Mutiling Bane, because if he identified that I was going upgrades first, I don't think my mutas would have been out in time. And he would have had a field day with those units, but because I had Roach Hydra, I was able to hold.
Yeah, makes sense. All right, guys. Well, that's going to be the TVZ, or should I say ZVT. We're going to be moving on to the next interview segment, followed by the Zerg versus Protoss. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Hey guys, hope you enjoyed that Zerg versus Terran. I'm back here with Midday. And we're going to talk a little bit about Complexity Gaming, your team, man. So tell us a little bit about Complexity Gaming. Like, what are they about? I know that they are definitely one of the more well-known teams in the scene.
What are they about? FPS. Well, that's how they started. But we lost our Counter-Strike team recently, which was unfortunate. Not exactly entirely up to us, but it happened. Obviously, the people who are watching are going to be more interested in what we're doing on the SQ2 side. I'm not sure how much I'm allowed to say,
Mm-hmm.
but right now we're kind of just floating, right? Nothing too big happening. Will something big happen? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know what the chances of it are. Really, it could be like 90% or 10% of what I'm thinking in my head right now, which I'm not allowed to say, which I shouldn't say as well.
Yeah.
And other than that, the contract renewals, for the most part, for most of us, because 5 of us got signed at once, right?
Yeah.
And we all signed the contract basically at the same time. That renewal time is coming in like really early February,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm not sure what's going to happen then. But I think for the most part, we'll be relatively stable. And speaking of stability, Complexity is a very stable team. I'm happy I don't have to deal with any of that Alloy Esports crap or any of that
Yeah.
freaking
Quantic
love your
gaming.
girlfriend contact. Yeah, it's funny. When I was applying for academies, I first asked Quantic, I'm like, hey, can I join your guys' academy? It's really good. And then, they're like, oh, well, you're not top 50 GM, and management just ignored me. And then later I applied to Clarity Academy, and they accepted 9 people, and I was listed as rank 10 in the standings. So I was one spot away from getting in, but
Worked out in the end.
now I'm on the Complexity main team. Quantic blew up to a scandal, and Clarity Gaming died in a fire. So, yeah, it worked out.
Tell us, like, do you get to practice a lot with the Complexity Gaming players or anything?
I mean, if I were to ask them, they'd probably be like, yeah, sure, let's play. Except, no, Koba might say yeah. Okay, yeah, I think he said yes before. But yeah, so, I practice them sometimes. Whenever I ask Hendrix for games, he's just like, oh, I'm tired or something like that. And then he'll log on like 30 minutes later and start playing customs. I'll be like, you piece of shit. But when I was at Red Bull and I was talking with Kane, he's just like, he does that to me too. I'm like, oh, well, if he does it to you, I don't feel half as bad. So Henry's kind of sporadic like that. He just does his own thing. And it works for him. So I'm not going to argue with the result. Yeah, I practice them sometimes. It's helpful. Doing customs, I think, is better than ladder, because if you can get like one person of one race and grind like 50 games on like even the same map, because I feel like repetition is the key, right? If you want to learn something, you just got to keep doing the same thing. And if you lose a game on ladder, it's like, oh, well, here's what I think I lost. I guess I'll try that next time when it happens. In a custom game, it's just like, hey, can you like do that thing you just did again?
Yeah.
And then just like, yeah, sure. And then everybody's just like, oh, you're just gonna metagame me. It's like, well, buddy, this is practice. I'm not gonna react until I look for it, right?
Yeah.
So I ask around for custom games a lot.
I also want to ask, like, what do you feel has been your biggest accomplishment in StarCraft so far?
Nothing worth bragging about.
Really? Okay. Well, I'm gonna come back to that answer a little bit later on, but for now, let's just kind of finish up the whole talk about all the different matchups. Let's talk about your Zerg versus Protoss, and how do you feel about ZVP right now?
Everything sucks dick other than Stormhosts.
all right. You gotta elaborate on this one, right?
Okay. Lots of Protoss players complain, like, oh, well, I want to do things on the map with my units, even though they have recall. And they're like, you have to dedicate so much if you want to attack as Protoss. Not untrue. And that's a strength too, because the defensive stance of Protoss is like so powerful. And anything that you throw at them, they can deflect if they react well. It's the same as with any attack, right? In StarCraft, if you attack, it's up to the defender to make a mistake. I don't think a lot of people realize that. It's like a person 4-gating another guy, and when the 4-gate person loses, they're like, well, what did I do wrong? What could I have done to win? Well, maybe if you control better your opponent, that might be a reason, but most of all, it comes down to your opponent's reaction to defense. I'm pretty sure any player who really, really compulsively all-ins knows in their head every time they move out of their base or every time they go into a game, they're like, I hope my opponent doesn't do X, X, and X, because if they do those things, they're going to win. Storm hosts are the only play style that work against everything, and you can go into the late game with it. You usually have to go into the late game with it, but you go into the late game with it. knowing that as long as you play your cards right, you can contend in an even game with them. And I'm not saying that Protoss is overpowered. I'm saying that the other styles have their pros and cons, right? But the Swarm hosts are the only play style that work against everything.
What do you feel is your big one strength and one weakness in Zerg versus Protoss?
Strength, I would say playing with Swarm hosts. I've gotten really good at that. I'm not sure if I have any particular glaring weakness. Like, obviously I'm not perfect, but there's nothing in my mind where I'm like, oh my god, that always works versus me, right? Because like there's sometimes versus Terra and Zerg where I'll be like, man, this works against me way more than it should. But like Protoss players, like lots of the bullshit they crack out, I'm like, well, you know what? I hold that off, sometimes. Actually, you know what? I just thought of fucking Warp Prism sentries on the ramp. You drop the sentry in their main, you force field their ramp, and you claim your free win. Fucking bullshit. All they do is like warp in 4 Zealots and everything in your main instantaneously dies. And if you just happen to have Larva in your main, if you're not supply blocked from the shit from like maybe they like open Stargate first and clear out the overlords or whatever it is, that weakness there. Yeah.
Well, I don't think you're alone in that one, man. I think that has frustrated many a Zerg player.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm looking forward to the Zerg versus Protoss that you sent in. I'm sure it's going to be about 7 hours long. Guys, go to the bathroom now during this 15-second transition. We will be back with the Zerg versus Protoss in just a couple seconds.
It's game time! Zerg versus Protoss.
Hello everyone. Welcome to the Zerg versus Protoss. My name is Fear Dragon, and once again, I'm here by myself. But I have you guys, so it's okay. Spawning up here at the top right-hand corner of the map, we have the red Protoss player, the enemy himself. It is going to be Gosu Dark. Oh, he's so dark. But his opponent, spawning down here in the bottom left-hand corner of the map as the blue Zerg player representing Team Complexity Gaming. It is Complexity Gaming's Midday. And I hope you guys went to the bathroom. I hope you guys took my advice. Because if you guys were listening, I don't know if you guys were listening to that interview. Because I was listening to the interview. Alright, just saying. Midday says he likes the Swarm host. So I'm expecting to see the Swarm host come out in this game. We'll have to see how it actually ends up working out for Midday. Because, we talk about this map. This is actually a map that I'm really glad he sent this one in, this replay in. Because this is a map that I honestly feel like maybe not the best in the world for Swarm hosts. I think it can work out. Maybe other players will disagree with me. But just because I think it can work out really well if you get your Swarm hosts, somewhere around this area or over here. And then you can send your Locusts in up to the ramp. You could send them in over to this potential 4th location. But the big problem is if your opponent gets outside, if they establish their army somewhere around this area, then they actually have this huge capability of saying, okay, well, your Locusts are coming in from this side. Let me just walk my army down and around your Locusts, and oh, look, I'm on top of your Swarm host, when they don't have anything to defend them. And I think that is definitely a big scare, because in a sense, this is a fairly big map. There is a little bit of that potential for the walk-arounds if you can get out of that big chokish area by your 3rd and 4th expansions. But we'll see if that actually comes into play. Right now, Midday, just going for the hatch first, getting up the spawning pool. Nothing too crazy. The probe coming in over here from Gosu Dark. And he did go for the Nexus first down here on the low ground with the pylon over there. And actually going to play it out super greedy upon seeing the hatch first. Going straight into a second pylon. No forge, no gateways or anything coming down just yet. He just wants to make sure he can keep making them workers as long as possible. And finally now just getting up the forge. And he may be able to be a little bit annoying over here. He may be able to like fake out a pylon and be like, oh, you better react because you don't know what I've done. You don't know whether I've gone for the forge first or anything. Because of course Midday, he hasn't really scouted his opponent yet. He knows where his opponent is because he's already scouted up to the top side, and he knows it's got to be crossed at this point. Because again, these two bases, kind of a good indication that you can't spawn horizontal on this map. But he does still have to be a little bit careful. Of course, no shenanigans going to be going on so far for Gosu Dark. And I think Midday should be feeling pretty good about his situation right now. Cannon also going to be going up for Gosu Dark, and nothing too crazy. Now, let's talk a little bit about the Protoss player and what he can really do on this map. So first of all, let's just talk about this third expansion, because look at this third expansion. So easy to take. We've seen it many and many a time on the map Deadwing. It's just so easy to get a nice little wall off going over here, and boom, you have a secure third expansion. Honestly, sometimes just around like 6 or so minutes. Gosudar investing a little bit more in the kind of the defense, make sure he doesn't lose anything super duper cheesy or, you know, crazy early on. I'm going for the cannon and the wall off over the natural expansion, and gonna plop down that Cybernetic core as well. But we could still see him go for that faster third expansion, and that would put a little bit of pressure maybe on Midday to say, okay, are you gonna just take a fast fourth expansion, or are you gonna do something else? Are you gonna try and put on a little bit of pressure? Based on what Midday was saying in his interview, I'm likely to guess that he would just be okay with taking it to the later and later stages of the game. But what is this pro doing over here? I mean, the hatchery, the third expansion, this is all very well good and normal, but this is a little bit less normal. I mean, again, spawning pool is finished up. Midday only has one Zergling out of the map, though. And it's actually just one of his buddy actually lost its life to this poor kin. So Gosudar is going to go for a little bit of revenge. He's planted down some cannons of his own in the natural, or sorry, I should say the third expansion. And Midday is not going to see it for quite a bit of time. Actually, these two cannons should be able to finish up. And look at that, the hatchery sees it, but guess what? There's only drones, and more drones on the way. 2 Zerglings gonna be following it up, but the Queen is gonna be able to start wailing away at least one of those cannons, but this is gonna be a very, very difficult wall to breach. This cannon gonna go completely defended, actually, and honestly, it can't really be answered right now. A cannon now going down, and it has lost all of its shields. The Queen's gonna be able to wail away a little bit at it, but oh god, this Queen is losing its health very, very rapidly. Oh, just barely not pulling it back in time. The shot actually just still going out, even though it was a little bit out of range. Multiple spawn callers being thrown down because Midday knows he does not want to lose his third expansion. That would set him actually really far behind at this point, even with the investment that Gosudar has gone for. But now a lot of Zerglings out on the map. He is going to be able to just, honestly, he's not going to be able to do a lot of damage to these cannons over here with the Zerglings, but he's going to be able to add a little bit of defense, and he's going to be able to get the cannons up here on the top side. And most importantly, I would say, is that he's able to just kind of buy time for himself. Yeah, he's going to be losing all of these Zerglings. He's going to be able to take out most of the cannons, but his hatchery didn't just get focus fired down or anything. He was able to keep the hatchery alive. He was able to get the spine crawlers up also to deal with the last remaining cannon. He has also got a lot of Zerglings out of the map. I think that, you know, I'm not too sure, but I feel like Midday maybe made a couple too many Zerglings considering he also had the spine crawlers. He also had his Queen. He also had all of the Zerglings. I feel like he was kind of one of the other situations, because now he has a lot of Zerglings and he has to decide what to do with them. Now this may still work out well for him though, because if you look at what Gosudar is doing, he's going for that early third. I say early third even though it's 8 minutes, but you have to put it into the context of this game. Gosudar invested very heavily into that aggression with the cannons over the third expansion. This means that he's kind of behind on where a Protoss player would normally be. I mean, look at this. He has one gateway. It is not, it hasn't even warped into a warp gate just yet. And now you can see the reason why he's kind of preoccupied dealing with these Zerglings. He does not want to let these Zerglings in. He's obviously going to have a very difficult time getting a probe out as well. But I actually really quickly do want to note that the Zerglings actually don't have speed, which is fairly interesting considering Midday did get up a slightly earlier gas geyser. Wasn't really mining gas for quite a bit of time though. I guess just kind of deciding to go for the early third expansion, which he did manage to save. But Midday, I feel like he wasn't quite able to do the damage that he wanted to with those Zerglings. He obviously made a lot more, and you could have a lot more drones right now considering the situation. Still, Midday getting up a fourth expansion. He's looking to bring this out into the late stages of the game. We'll see if it works out very well. Oracle now going to be coming in. Of course, it is a hallucination. Midday not going to be entirely sure about it. He may just know better than I do, especially after seeing the damage that his Oracle's taking. Oracles that are hallucinated, just units in general that are hallucinated do take double damage. But Roach Horn also going to be coming out. Evolution Chamber is also down. I'm kind of wondering, is this just going to be like a big upgrade kind of thing right now? +1 melee attack or missile attacks coming out as well. Yeah, it looks like Midday is just kind of saying, okay, well I need to prepare for some later game stage play. Might as well get up some you know, Roach Horn and everything for an eventual attack that may be coming out. And look, this is the attack that's going to be coming out. Infestation Pit actually being thrown down also. I mean, this is a fairly early Infestation Pit, again, in the context of this game. So I'm kind of worried for Midday right now. He has a lot of roaches coming out. That is definitely going to be very helpful against this push, but I can very also well see, you know, this entire force comes in over here. The Spine Core's actually burned in a great position. Zergling's getting on top of the sentries. This is a good start for Midday, but he's not quite able to get enough units or Zerglings on top of those sentries. A lot of the sentries lose a lot of the shields, but oh, actually the Spine Core finishing off one of those sentries, gets another one very, very low in health. This actually could be enough for Midday, especially with all the roaches now charging in. The Warpins a bit further behind for Ghostly Dark. Ghostly Dark did not actually establish any kind of proxy pylons out on the map, and it's not just because, oh, Ghostly Dark messed up, right? It's actually has a lot to do with the fact that you consider those earlier Zerglings that I was kind of saying, you know, Midday didn't really want those out on the map. Well, actually, it did some good because it stopped Ghostly Dark from being able to plant down any kind of early proxy pylons to really help out this aggression. Wasn't really be able to sneak that probe out of the map because of those Zerglings. And now you can end up seeing this aggression that Ghostly Dark tried to go for. Ain't gonna work. Midday cleaning up all of these super duper expensive units. The Mothership Core may be able to clean up a couple of these roaches, but it realized it's got to retreat on home, because if those roaches start going and trying to be a little bit aggressive with some backup, oh, things could get a little bit hashtag dicey. But you know, a couple more Immortals at home for Ghostly Dark. He doesn't have a Robotics Bay. Actually, no, he does have a Robotics Bay. He actually is just that afraid right now. He's producing just non-stop Immortals, and he doesn't want to even bother start the Colossus production, because he realizes that, you know, if Midday decides to just keep going for the big round of units and aggression, he could be in a lot of trouble. So he's going to continue to crank out some of those Immortals. Finally feels like, okay, there's no big attack coming. Can start making some of those Colossus, and that's going to be a good sign for him, because he's going to need those Colossus, especially once he realizes that the infestation pit was actually thrown down. And of course, we do have the Swarm Host on the way. 9 Swarm Hosts already going to be popping out. I told you guys, Midday told us, he warned us about this, but you know, I'm looking forward to seeing this, because he's said that he feels like this style is a very solid style. And that usually means he's a player that I think is okay with going into the super duper late game. He'll play out the Swarm Host game, as we very well know Swarm Hosts to be played out sometimes. But you know what? I think that when you have a player that's actually well practiced with this kind of unit composition, sometimes you can actually just end the game a little bit earlier just through good knowledge of how to use your units. And you can see that he's going to have a very large number of Swarm Hosts. He's going to be able to put on that pressure and potentially even just say, you know what, you're not going to take a 4th expansion. You're not going to take a 5th expansion. You can do that kind of denying. And I think the 5th expansion is going to be definitely a much harder one to take for the Protoss player Ghostly Dark, because 4th expansion, a little bit easier to take. You position your army right around this choke, you deal with all those locusts. It's kind of what I was talking about earlier. You want to establish your army somewhere around this area as a Protoss player. The Zerg player wants to make sure that the locusts are able to establish this point of interest, that they are able to keep this Protoss player back, so that they have to defend around this area, and it becomes very, very difficult to defend that 5th expansion. So you can see now, Midday being very, very careful with the Swarm Hosts. He does not want to allow them to just get sniped off, so he's actually doing a good job just keeping them on creep. And look at this, he moves the Swarm Hosts forward just a little bit as the creep starts to inch forward. May actually be a little bit more aggressive as he gets off creep, as he does have the support of those roaches finally. But very soon, this creep is going to be over here, especially with these queens backing him up. The roach is now moving in, but oh, there's not an engagement that they want to take. Time Warp going down, slows down a couple of the roaches. Only one of them actually ends up losing its life, and the Locust is going to be able to be the backup that the roaches need to make the quick escape, I should say. Some of these roaches actually going straight for the 4th expansion. I don't really know. I guess maybe he was just trying to get a good scout up on them. Maybe he's just trying to sacrifice. I think he's actually just trying to sacrifice the army supply. You can see he's basically maxed out. And that's after losing those roaches, immediately making a ton of corruptors. He already has a Spire down. I don't think he has a Greater Spire just yet. No Greater Spire on the way just yet, but I guess he just wants to deal with the Colossus. Colossus is not really in a super high number right now, and Ghostly Dark is also fairly maxed out at this point. And I say fairly maxed out because, of course, he still has 3 supply left over to max out on, but still, this is a very low Colossus count considering the fact that he's up against a Swarm hosting player. Normally you want at least 3, oftentimes like 4 or 5 Colossus just to deal with the Swarm host, because if you can evaporate the Swarm host without really taking any losses, I mean, you can see right now the Locust able to kill off a couple of Stalkers here and there with each one of these waves, but I guess Ghostly Dark does still have good enough upgrades and everything to push on forward. 2-1 upgrades on those Stalkers, and now you can end up seeing the Roaches only stay on that +2 weapons, but is it going to be enough? The Colossus now being wailed away at and immediately taken out by the Corruptors. Now the Corruptors really don't have a whole lot more to do Corruptors have served their purpose. They're going to retreat on home, although I guess they could actually take out that Motion Core. Motion Core doesn't really have an energy, and yeah, Midday spots it, just says, okay, I'm going to get rid of that really quickly, and now back up. Because now the warp... Oh, actually, whoa, I take it back. The Corruptors had a second purpose, and that was taking out those damn Observers, as there is no Observers for Ghostly Dark to actually continue pushing on forward. And guess what? With no Colossus and no Observers, it's the fact that he doesn't have either of them. He cannot continue to push. These Stalkers are not able to deal with the Locust swarms as they start to pop out, so he has to back up. If it was just the Observer being taken out, sometimes you can kind of just take out the Locust fast enough and you can keep pushing on forward, whatnot. If you can take out, you know, if the Colossus ends up being lost, but the Observer's still alive, then you can continue, you can take out all the Swarm Lords, there's no problem. But it's the fact that he lost both, and that was a really good move from Midday to actually snipe off both of those with the Corruptors. A very high Corruptor count is going to make it very difficult for Ghostly Dark to do a lot of pressure, and you can see he has a big scary army, but not able to do a whole lot more with it. But this is going to be his response. Triple Stargates coming out for Ghostly Dark. How is Midday going to be prepared? I mean, he does have his own Hive Tech on the way. Is that going to be really enough? We'll have to wait and see, because Corruptors in fairly high numbers, and a lot of players may complain, a lot of viewers may also complain, like, oh my god, Protoss so invo, what do you do? But you know what? Midday is the player that we're going to rely on to say, you know what? That's fine. I can keep calm. I have a big bank. And he's also said in his interview, like, there's not really a lot of situations that he's kind of like, oh, well, I don't really know what to do against this. He says that he feels relatively comfortable in the late game, and just in ZVP, he seems to feel very, very comfortable with it. So I'm expecting to see, you know, very calm and collected play. And look again, he's putting on that pressure once again with the Swarmos, position them on creep so he can do the retreats. Corruptors, of course, also there to back it up. And, you know, again, he doesn't have to, like, destroy the entire army of Ghostly Dark with these Locusts. It's the continuous pressure. But is he going to need to know about the Void Rays that are being made right now out of all three of these Stargates, +1 weapons, with the air weapons, I should say, being researched for Ghostly Dark. Midday slowly advancing on forward as the creep extends itself further and further over. Zergling now actually scouting out this 5th expansion. The 5th expansion scout is actually super duper important because Midday, you can see over here, he has a couple more Zerglings. He's maybe thinking about going, yeah, he's thinking about going with a run around over to that expansion. He wants to deny and wants to make sure that it's not going to be able to do a whole lot. Another wave of Locusts coming in, and guess what? The entire army is pulled over here to the 5th expansion. Locusts can go over to the 3rd? No, actually, or sorry, 4th. But instead, they're actually just going to go straight for the army. He takes out a Colossus, and boom! There goes all your splash. There goes literally all of your splash damage, Ghostly Dark, says Midday. Zerglings and a couple of Hydras actually also. I guess he just wants that added DPS against the Nexus. Gonna be able to do some very, very quick DPS, but ooh, War Prism actually may have been scouted out by Midday. I'm not entirely sure. He does have some decent Spine Crawler and Spore Crawler defense. And, oh my god, okay, this is good Spine Crawler defense. Dear Lord, this should be enough for any kind of War Prism harassment, I imagine. With the Locust continue to put on that pressure once again, but I really like what Midday is doing, because you think about it, Swarmos have the inherent disadvantage of being super immobile. If you have Swarmos over here on this side of the map, and also these Corruptors, and you know, Zerglings and Hydras, like, sure the Zerglings are maybe a little bit more mobile, but everything else is super immobile. You can't really bring them back to defense. So you know what? He just says, I'm going to make a bunch of static defense back at home. And what are you really going to be able to do about it? Takes off the War Prism. A really, really solid win over there, especially with those Corruptors and the Vipers now sitting on a lot of energy. You can start to move in. And guess what? Very soon, it's not just going to be pure Locust putting on the pressure. It's going to be the Colossus moving in once again to take out any of those Colossus. It's going to be the Vipers laying down the Blinding Cloud, which is actually super deadly. You know, just look at Ghostly Dark's composition. I mean, it's Stalkers. It's Stalkers and Immortals. Blinding Cloud would be devastating. Oh, Nexus not quite able to snipe, but doing some good damage. And oh, Locust, are they going to be able to... Okay, just going after the cannon. No big deal. Could kill off a couple of those gateways whenever he really wants to, honestly, but... This is what I was talking about. Ghostly Dark has the opportunity to move out and around the Locust. Now we end up seeing Vipers and Colossus Vipers and Corruptors engaging directly against the Protoss Death Ball. This is not exactly what you want, but the Vipers are actually all taken out, and the Corruptors managed to get a lot of the Void Rays, managed to get the Colossus as well. Maybe this is actually working out decently right now for Midday, maybe? I guess the Corruptors have done their job, and now there's not really all those big gas-intensive or expensive units. And look at this, the Zerglings actually get the run by over to the 5th expansion, able to take that out. So I take it back. Maybe it didn't seem like it was going to work out super well for Midday, but he has definitely been able to clean up and make the most of it, honestly. And like what Gosu Dark is doing, he's saying, okay, I don't have the War Prism, I don't really have any of those kind of things, but I can go for the big Zealot harassment. Even if there are a lot of Spine Callers over here, they can still do some damage. The Spine Callers are going to be there to buy time against this many Zealots, right? It's not going to actually be able to take out all the Zealots. He's going to buy himself time, but Midday still has to react to it. He can still try and force some of those Swarmers, or just some of the units back from Midday. Ghosty Dark on the prowl, once again looking for some kind of flanking position, but look, oh my god, this is actually a little bit disgusting. Spore Callers being set up to defend the Swarm Host, but the Protoss army is not going for the Swarm Host. He's going for that economy, he's going for that 3rd expansion. Sees a couple of these Spine Callers, boom, they're going to get taken out very, very quickly, as well as the Spore Caller is doing some good damage, actually. I think to the Void Ray, but oh god, it looks like the Corruptors are going to be over there to finish off the Void Ray and the everything else, but Spinecrow is actually not quite in the position that they need to be to defend this new expansion for Midday. At the same time, 3rd expansion taking a lot of damage. The Swarmos are now starting to reposition themselves to try and defend, but this is what I was talking about. Swarmos, not the best unit for the defense, and now the Stalkers, they have Blink, so they just move around. They're ultra mobile right now. They move in, take out the hatchery, and now they're going to be able to take out the Greater Spire. That means that there's not going to be a chance of either Corruptors being reproduced, but also any kind of Broodlord transition is going to be able to be made for Midday, which is going to be a little bit annoying, but a lot of Spine Crawlers over here in the main base. The Hive tech is going to be relatively safe. Looks like Midday is just going to have to blink down over here to this new, or I should say relatively new, but I mean, it is his freshest expansion right now. This expansion got taken out. Sure, it has all the Spine Crawlers over there, but this is his only real mining base right now. This could actually be a really big problem for Midday. The Stalker's taking a lot of damage over here on the retreat. It could still end up being worth it for Midday, but oh man, it's going to be a very, very awkward and scary situation. As even though 3 Stalkers are left over, Midday has lost all semblance of his economy. As you can see, 38 workers, but where are they really mining? It's pretty much all over here. And he's trying to reproduce this expansion. He's trying to reproduce this expansion. I imagine he's going to try and reproduce this expansion at some point, but he has basically got to just move across the map and try and get some damage done, because, yeah, the Protoss player not really mining too heavily himself, but he still has this expansion. This expansion is still looking nice, juicy, and fresh, and if he's able to get this expansion up, oh man, Midday is not going to be feeling too good about his situation. So Locust now starting to apply that pressure once again. The Zergling's actually moving in to deny this expansion. This is a good move from Midday, and even though there are a lot of splash damage units over here, Archons, Colossus, Void Rays, Gosu Dark has been reproducing that big high-tech army, is just not enough to actually save that expansion. That's going to be very, very annoying, but he can still charge on forward, taking out the Locusts one after the other, not really losing too much, losing a couple of the Archons. The Archons add a lot of splash damage, especially with the +3 weapons, but is it going to be enough? He still takes a lot of damage on them. Viper's trying to pull in some of the Archons, not quite able to do a whole lot of damage over there, and now the Locusts are gonna be able to do some good damage over here. Imagine, is there an observer with the army? I don't see any observers in the entire Protoss army. This is basically it. It's 8 Colossus, 3 Voiders. The Voiders getting taken out. There's nothing left to defend the Colossus. GG gets called, and it looks like Midday gonna be taking the Zerg versus Protoss. Really sick play over there, and honestly, just very methodical play. I think the only kind of time that it was starting to get a little bit scary was basically when the Zealots were able to move around up to this expansion, snipe it off. They weren't quite able to power on through to take out this expansion, but the Stalkers also, just when the entire Protoss army was able to get out of that big contain that the Swarmos are setting up, that's when it got a little bit scary for Midday, but he was able to handle the situation still expertly, take out the Stalkers with some good positioning, and kind of trap them in, which I think was a really smart maneuver. He wasn't just kind of chasing them all the way on through, anticipating that there was really only one blink path out. But yeah, let's just, ignore my talking, because Midday knows his game better than I do. So we're going to go ahead and get Midday's thoughts on the game. We'll see you guys in the analysis segment. Hey everyone, hope you enjoyed that Zerg versus Protoss. I'm here with Midday once again for the analysis segment, as we're going to learn a little bit more about his playstyle from him himself. So Midday, let's go ahead and jump into the game and check out exactly what was going on in this game.
Okay, a lot of swarm hosts.
Yes.
And a bit of cheekiness from him. There was cannons involved, and it got close. It got
Yes.
close, but it ended up pretty even, honestly. You'll see what I mean later. But yeah, he goes for Nexus first, pretty sure. And I just 15 hatch.
Yeah, so I mean, this is like a really big map. Obviously, horizontal spawn positions are actually disabled on this map, but
Yeah, I don't know why he's doing that.
yeah, so that was I was a little bit weirded about as well. But ignoring that, like, I'm always kind of curious how Zergs feel about this map because I know a lot of Protoss players. It's like, oh well, I have an easy third expansion. Like, there's absolutely I have no problems with this map or qualms with this map. But for Zerg players, I feel like you can kind of have a potentially easy fourth expansion. But I've also seen other situations where it's like, oh god, defending this fourth expansion. If my opponent gets down into that fourth expansion area, like, and they have force fields plus recall, it can be absolute hell. So, what are your thoughts about this map overall?
I feel like you're right, but if the Zerg is playing right, I don't think that they should always have units in time on creep to intercept the attack before it gets in a really abusive position.
Okay, yeah, that definitely makes sense. So let's talk a little bit about your opening then, since we'll actually talk about the game itself. You go for like this gas opening. Is there any particular reason for that?
I'm not quite sure why I took the gas when I did.
Yeah, it definitely felt like it was a lot earlier than we'd normally see. Like, especially on a big 4-player map.
Later than normal, because normally I go hatch gas pull, which means that the moment the pull is done, I can start link speed or something like that. But yeah.
Was this not hatch gas pull? Oh, okay.
This was hatch pull gas. It looks like.
Okay.
But it's still not the biggest deal.
Yeah. That's fair. Because I know some Zerg players, they like to get up like an early Zerging speed, and even if they're not against a Forge Fast expansion, like if they're up against like a Gateway expansion, they can sometimes put some pressure onto the Nexus.
So I see this is happening. I'm like, well, fuck.
Yeah. This is just oodles of fun. So what's kind of going through your head at this point? Like, when do you just sort of decide, like, okay, this is a lost cause. Like, I just need to stop investing into like the defense, and when is it like still okay to try and throw out the multiple spine collars to try and get rid of these cannons?
You never see this in pro games, and that's usually my cue to say that means it probably doesn't work, so I try to hold.
Okay. So what do you think is like important for the holds? Because I know this is something that a lot of Zerg players, they have a lot of big frustrations with, right? Like losing to those kind of cannon shenanigans, especially when you have that many cannons in like a really good position.
What was the question exactly? I'm not quite sure.
What do you think was like what are like the important things you need to make sure you do against those kind of attacks?
You just have a link patrolling the third.
Okay.
And that shuts it down. I usually do that, and that's honestly probably why it doesn't happen in pro games, because people like pay attention. But yeah.
All right.
I held him. We broke even anyways.
Yeah.
I noticed that he has a robo on the edge of his wall. Usually when they place a production tech structure on a wall, it means they want to all in. So I was careful to watch out for that. In fact, he doesn't have gas. Okay, never mind. He just took the gas at his third at 10:30, but he's like doing it with the move out. So this is obviously like a high pressure build. I see this moving across the map, and I'm like, okay, time to build units, I guess. I moved the spines down that I had from the cannon rush earlier. But he doesn't have like a pylon with this. If he did, I might be in like much bigger trouble, but I was able to... well, the two spines, I have a lot of queens. Nah, maybe I would have been fine. Yeah, I have a lot of units now anyway, so I just kind of chase this stuff a bit.
Yeah, and were you kind of like reacting also at all like to the fact that the Mothership Core just done? Like when you see the time warps go down, is that kind of like your opportunity where you kind of spring in action and say like, okay, you can't recall out, like you're trapped here?
Yeah, that's a thing, yeah.
Okay.
That's basically what I said to myself. I'm like, okay.
Yeah. So at this point, like you've successfully defended, you've pushed them all the way across, back across the map. What's kind of like your game plan from here on? Because I mean, you're making the Swarmos and everything, but is it more of a like when you were making the Swarmos, are you thinking like, let me just make sure he doesn't take a fourth at this point, like any point in the game? Or
there's nothing I can do to stop him from taking a fourth, but like if I went mutas and he saw it really fast and reacted well, then he might have been able to beat me just by building lots of Phoenix at the start. And if I like miscalculate the attack, then I'm screwed. But if I do calculate properly, then I can like wait build Corruptors and sort of bide my time. But anyways, the best way to play against Protoss is just Swarm Host, because Swarm Host is the only playstyle that will work against every single Protoss playstyle.
So that's really interesting that you say that, because you know it's something that like a lot of people don't necessarily like, right? Like there are a lot of Zerg players that don't necessarily like playing against this, or like playing the Swarm Host style. Do you feel like there's any particular reason for that, other than just like it's boring? Like, are there any compositions that you do run into trouble with going for Swarm Hosts?
It's not necessarily composition. It's more or less the inability of the Zerg to be proactive with defending. You'll see what I mean as this game goes on, because I do a relatively good job of being... Like, if you notice in the main, I got Spines building, and at the fourth, I have a little bit of Static D. So he's just doing a flat push across the map at 7-10, and it's a bit scary. I sort of spread the Swarm Hosts around, and then I just engage with Corruptors, focus the Colossi, and I just sort of chill out right now. This is really sketchy. I always make sure to focus the Observer down, and I keep an Overseer with my Corruptor hockey. Right now I'm just building flat lings, because I don't want the Stalkers to be blinking in everywhere in my base, so if I build flat lings, it's a lot better.
I see.
But I see the Stalkers going around, so I just reroute the Swarm Hosts and, you know, keep them busy.
Yeah, so it sounds like map vision really important for this kind of style that you're doing, because you need to know like where his army is moving around and that kind of stuff.
And he should be having like a hit group of Stalkers with an Observer just clearing creep right now, but he's just sort of doing his own thing at home, I guess.
Yeah.
He's building lots of Star Gates right now and building lots of Void Rays. This is a very good response to players who don't build Infestors. In fact, I actually don't think I built Infestors this game, but as you might be able to identify by the map and by the money, I'm in a very good position right now.
Yeah,
as well as in terms of army value, I'm actually ahead on that too.
So one other thing that I've noticed is that you seem very hesitant to like bring your Swarm Hosts off of creep. Is there like a particular reason for that? Because normally like Swarm Hosts aren't going to be moving that much anyways, right?
Because if your enemy approaches you and your Swarm Host on creep, you can't run. You lose.
Okay. Yeah, I guess that would definitely make sense. So at this point, are you just kind of saying like, okay, I'll just keep whittling away at his army? Like, are you worried about like the 5th expansion at all? Like, is there any point that you're sort of saying to yourself, I need to make sure that he doesn't get X expansion up so that I can eventually kind of wear him out?
I feel like I'm moving around and being like, you see, I'm killing the 5th right now. In fact, I don't think I get it, but I get it later.
Yeah.
I'm running these Hydras now. The idea right now is to just trade like crazy. And actually, we have an engagement right here. I kind of lose Vipers for nothing. Kind of bad of me, but whatever.
Yeah.
I just kind of sack my Corruptors here. I'm like, okay, let's do this. And then Locusts are left. And I just built 21 more Corruptors. And I start to build some Static D. And if you notice, I got a lot of Static D now, just moving around everywhere. And I got Spores up my Nat and Spores up my 3rd to make sure Wayward War Prisms don't fly in from the east. And then he's got like a bunch of Zealots coming to my 5th. I thought these Spines would be enough, but they're not. I actually needed to move all the Spines from my 3rd, which I do now. And it still doesn't work. And now he's just attacking that area of my base. So I go in here. It's nice that he just blinks so my Corruptors can go relatively safely. And so I know things are about to get really convoluted because Blink Stalkers are pretty good against Swarm Hosts. As weird as it, like, indirectly, obviously.
Yeah.
So he gets my Greater Spire here, which is not the biggest deal because he's producing Void Rays and I don't want to build those units anyways right now. I set some Swarm Hosts on the low ground and reroute them because I know he's going to blink down. And luckily for me right now, he has no high ground vision, so he just loses like a ton of Stalkers right here.
Right.
Resources lost tab is actually still relatively even.
So one thing that I've noticed with a lot of players who go for this sort of Swarm Host style is that they're actually oftentimes okay with trading like some of these bases for their opponent's army, right? Is that the sort of similar to how you feel, or do you kind of feel like you're in a really bad spot now, having lost basically all your mining bases?
It's like this. Let's say you're playing an opponent who's going like, let's say this was Wings of Liberty, okay? And you're playing somebody who's going Century Immortal bullshit, and then you respond with going for like mutas off 2 base and sacking your 3rd. The issue with that is that they just sort of walk away with their whole army, and what you have is mutas off 2 base production, and they already have a bunch of stalkers, so it's like good game anyways. And that happens in Heart of the Storm sometimes too. In fact, it's even better with recall. But Swarm hosts are the one unit I feel like okay with having that done with, right? Like if I lose my 3rd and we're like 2 base to 2 base, normally staying on even bases is disadvantageous for the Zerg. But when I have Swarm hosts, I'm like, okay, this is still like a position where I don't feel like I'm already dead. So yeah, trading bases is okay. The only thing that's not okay is losing the creep, because reestablishing, because it's like you'll see really good players like in pro games, you'll see the relentless aggression and like War Prisms flying into main, killing stuff. That's because of like no matter how much static D you put down, unless it's literally like 4,000 minerals of static D, they will be able to wear it away with war pins. And once it's worn away, if Zerg players don't stay proactive enough, they're going to lose their econ, they're going to get worn down, etc., etc. And basically losing the tempo of holding harass is the scariest thing that you have to be aware of. Like if you notice, I lost the 5th base at the north. Now the issue is I have to not only respread creep there, but rebuild static D for that, which I actually at the moment don't particularly have money for. Although he doesn't really have money to warp in Zealots.
Yeah.
But like, let's say he did have another base where I didn't kill that base on the right that he was like twice or once or whatever. Then he'd be able to keep warping in, and I wouldn't have any time to establish defenses at that base without rooting Swarm hosts there, which obviously I don't want to do. So it's all about keeping the tempo of defense.
Right, that definitely makes a lot of sense. Like the moment that he was able to like push out across the map was, I think, a momentary point in time where you had to pull your Swarm host back for like a split second, and then his Colossus and everything were able to move to the 3rd expansion. His Zealots were able to take out that other base. Like that's what was really causing problems, right? So that does make a lot of sense. But yeah, we're gonna go ahead and bring it back. And do you have any kind of final closing thoughts on this segment?
I feel like people who complain about Swarm hosts are the people who kind of try to engage them directly. And they're like, why isn't my army winning? That's sort of like trying to go up a ramp that has sentries on top of it and be like, why isn't it dying? It's like, I have all these units, but he has one unit that's force fielding me out. It's like, this is so bullshit, but...
Yeah.
Like,
that's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely saw, like, there looked like there were opportunities for the Protoss player to, like, try and get some good damage in. Like, he did manage to do some, like, good damage to like, your hatches and everything, but you kind of did manage to outposition him and take out a lot of those stalkers by like anticipating where he was going to move with his blink stalkers and moving your swarm host around. So that kind of action, definitely. But yeah, with that being said, guys, that's going to be it for the Zerg versus Protoss. We're going to be jumping back to the interview segment. No more analysis segments left over, but there is that awesome game coming up, so don't go anywhere. We will be right back. Hello everyone, welcome back from the Zerg versus Protoss. Hopefully it wasn't too long, hopefully the Swarm host didn't keep you too asleep. Just kidding. But I'm back here with Midday. Midday, man, I want to ask you a little bit about, I guess, your progression in the scene and stuff. Why are you different than anyone else that's trying to break out of the North American scene right now?
I don't know. There's nothing that I can say that will change anybody's mind of anything. This is one of those things, especially in an online community, where only actions will convince anybody of anything. Anything that you say is held against you by clowns and haters. So right now, I'm just gonna say, follow me on Twitter. And if I make it, which I think I will, just you'll notice. And if I don't, then the clowns and haters were right, but I don't think they are. So,
hey man, actions speak louder than words. I like the mentality. What has been the hardest part of breaking out the NA scene for you?
Lack of lands and lack of support. If I was like Joe Plumber and I wanted to break out, I'd be like, okay, well, not only do I need to fly to an event, I need to do like noticeably well there. Like when I was just starting out playing StarCraft, I had a friend tell me, he's just like, if you wanna get signed by a team, what you should do is that you should go to a tournament, like a really good premier tournament, and then win the open bracket. And obviously at that time I really didn't know what that meant, but looking back at what he said, he's right. Like that's basically what you need to do, and that is like so absurdly hard to do. For me, I think I was very, 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 very lucky. You know, like best case scenario in the state of documentary, who was like talking to his players was just like, "Okay, guys, we're not doing very well, so we need to get results. Promising that we'll do better in the future is not enough. Professionals get results, then make demands for those results first." And I was very lucky to not have to be on that swerve of things. Just from somebody coming, you know, into esports relatively late, I hear like the salary that my parents make, and then, you know, I hear what some pro Korean wants, and it's just like, yeah, I want 500 a month, and I'm like, 500 a month? That's dinky shit, man. That ain't gonna pay for jack. What are you gonna do? Pay for your like your 2 foot by 2 foot, you know, apartment room that way? But upon all the other support and stuff, and I obviously are here in esports, chances are you're probably not in it for money. Yeah, I think you get them.
How do you feel about like online tournaments and stuff? Do you feel like they're not quite as good for showing the results then?
They're not, because manager decisions are often based off player decisions, and lots of players have the attitude that being at a LAN where nerves are more likely to be racked should be taken so much more seriously. Yeah. And I think it's like basically to the point of elitism, that they're like, oh, it's just an online event, it's whatever, right? I think it depends on the magnitude of the online tournament. Like Cure winning Red Bull online, nobody's gonna be like, oh, you know, it's just an online tournament. Just no big deal. You know, Cure doesn't really deserve that. Yeah. But I think it's a very situational question. In regards to this particular tournament, I'm not sure what the numbers are on it in terms of viewers, but I think if you wanted to use results from this tournament to acquire leverage onto other teams, I think it would definitely be a viable thing to use.
Well, that makes me feel good about myself and like the tournament and everything. So that's good to hear. But, you know, moving on, let's talk really quickly about your thoughts on the other players in this tournament, because, you know, you are eventually going to have to play them. So let's kind of go through them. What do you think about all the players in Panda Bear Me?
I don't really lose to him, but it's been so long since I've played him. Maybe things have changed.
Jon Snow.
I'm not very confident versus Jon Snow, but then again, I've never played him, so I can't really be sure.
Kaifire?
I shouldn't have any problems. Only the power of Stormhost can help me versus Bales. I've actually never played Kalazar. I'm not sure what to think, but in terms of my level of confidence, I think he's definitely beatable. Yeah. Intense, he's very, very good, but I can beat him, of course. It's just a matter of will I beat him.
Zan?
Never played him. I have absolutely no idea what to think about him. No, I've never played Zan before. I have no idea what to think about him. I've never cared enough to watch any of his games either, nor do I think he ever frequently plays against Zerg, or there are any glaring games that he has played against Zerg. So I don't know what to say. I guess I'll just play, and if I win, I win. If I lose, I lose.
Well, with that being said, hopefully you guys enjoyed that. We're going to be going into the awesome game of the day. Don't go anywhere. Game will be here shortly. Hello everyone, welcome to the awesome game of the day. My name is Fear Dragon, and we're going to be checking out the awesome game from the day of Midday. Let's go ahead and jump in and introduce the players as we spawn down here in the bottom right hand corner of the map, representing Team CSC ! It is Bulugulugu. I think I added an extra G in there. Bulugulu. And his opponent spawning up here in the top left-hand corner of the map, King Sejong Station, on top of the top left-hand position. It is going to be the blue Zerg player representing Team Complexity, and the highlight player of the day, it is Midday, also known in this game as Sunny-ish. he's not exactly an optimist. He's not exactly always on the bright side of things, but he's pretty optimistic about his future. And especially in this match, well, actually, no, I was thinking for some reason it was a Zerg versus Protoss or something, but no, this is a Zerg versus Terran. He did say that he feels good in the later stages of the game in this matchup, but this is the awesome game, so you know, we toss a little bit of the whole logic aside, I want to say, and you know, worry about analysis and all that stuff. That's for the other games, so get a good feel for split cell. This game is really just here to have some fun and watch some awesome StarCraft by Midday. So we're gonna see what he's up to in this game. Barracks going down, a refinery going down, and it's looking like it's probably going to be some sort of Reaper expansion, especially after the barracks is thrown down right before the refinery. In the meanwhile, Midday going for the hatchery over at the natural expansion. Now again, I want to note, I just want to say it, Midday not afraid to go for the Swarmos and ZVP, Zerg versus Protoss. This is a different matchup, I will admit, it is in fact a different matchup, but does that mean he'd be afraid to go for Swarmos on this map? I don't know. We're only going to have to find out with time. But first Reaper is going to be coming out across the map. Now there are some kind of cool things on this map you can do with the Reaper. You can send it up along this cliff. You can send it straight through the natural expansion. You can jump it on up over here, like, and just bypass a little bit of the area that normally the Queen would be blocking around this side. But you know, overall, I feel like Zerg players have been able to figure out how to deal with the Reapers. You can see that Midday going for the gas geyser, and kind of similar to how he actually played out the other ZVT, I believe. It just allows him to clean up that Reaper a little bit faster, make sure that they aren't super duper annoying or nothing like that. So, with the Reaper moving out across the map, refinery going to be going through, or sorry, reactor. Wow, I'm just mixing up all the R words today. The reactor going down in the barracks. No, actually, Overlord scouts out the reactor and the barracks decides, no, let's not get a reactor. Let's just make Marines right now. I'm kind of curious, like, what exactly the Terran players see. He didn't really see anything, unless, I don't know, I guess he just kind of had a moment of doubt. Gonna be moving in with this Reaper. No Reapers to follow it up. Just gonna have this Marine out over here. I guess maybe he just decided, you know what, I can get a free Overlord if I just make a single Marine. And the Overlord actually is gonna be pretty close over here. We'll check back in on that one as it gets a little bit lower on health. The Reaper continuing to wail away and do little bits and pieces of damage, but the Overlord has gotten to safety. It is not gonna be seeing its death anytime in the near future. Reactor building built on that barracks, of course, factory going down. Everything, honestly, looking fairly standard. Kind of weird on the reactor cancel, but honestly, it was still a lead-in to regular old standard Terran play. Single Reaper gets a scout off and sees, okay, you're mining gas, you have a natural expansion. Everything's looking pretty standard, so he's going to go safe, playing a little bit standard. Second gas guys are coming down for Bulu, so it looks like we may be seeing that starport and maybe even see a tech lab plus a Banshee come out relatively quickly. Would be pretty interesting to see. Now, again, this is actually something that we do see sometimes on this map. And Reaper just continuing to be very, very annoying and just poking in. He's not actually doing a lot of damage over here. He may be able to get a couple of pickoffs on these Zerglings, but Zergling speed is about to finish up, so the Reaper actually needs to get the heck out of there. But the main idea is that he's just kind of able to get a good vision of what exactly Sunnyish is doing, or should I say Midday is doing. And right now he doesn't see anything too crazy, so he feels okay saying, okay, this attack is pushing with the tech lab. The Hellion's going to be coming out and the Banshee going to be coming out. Do we see Cloak? Yes, we do see Cloak. Second gas geyser allows him to get that gas count up high enough to get research the Cloak. And honestly, Cloak isn't even that expensive then anymore these days. Like, a while back, Blizzard made it much, much easier to actually research Cloak and not really have to invest that much into it. So I'm actually more just surprised when Terran players don't actually get Cloak. It's just that cheap these days. But now, Hellions and the Reaper are going to be able to put on a little bit of pressure. Third expansion is being taken over here by Midday, but is this really going to be safe? I mean, a couple of Hellions and a Reaper, they don't normally do too much damage to the building that quickly, but I mean, considering that Midday doesn't really have that many Zerglings out right now, he only has 4 Zerglings, 8 more on the way. I feel like these units just have the time to start wailing away at that third expansion, and guess what? It becomes a big target for later on pushes, and You also consider the fact that the creep spread and not really able to get out over to that third expansion. That means that the Spore Caller and Spine Callers can't really easily get over here. The Queens can't really get over there easily to defend. So that means that things like a Banshee can actually, if the hatchery is low enough, you can actually just try and pick off that hatchery with the Banshee. Looks like Midday trying to find an opportunity to go in, and Banshee actually doing some good damage over here from the backside. I was wondering where that sound was coming from. Getting 3 kills, forcing out a Spore Caller. Midday not entirely prepared with the Spore Callers, but it doesn't really matter just yet. Only now is the Banshee Cloak finishing up, I believe. Yeah, Banshee Cloak just finished up. 7 kills on the Banshee already, and Spore Caller finally finishes up. Queen's gonna be able to wail away at that Banshee, and at the same time as it gets taken out, the Hellions, as I was saying, doing a lot of damage over this hatchery, but actually target fire down on the hatchery from the Hellions does allow those Zerglings to get in a lot of extra pop shots. 2 more Hellions coming in to reinforce. The Zerglings have been cleaned up, but the Roaches remain alive to ward off the attack. And at the end of the day, I don't really know if that was really worth it for a Terran player. Yeah, he did a good amount of damage. 7 worker kills. I mean, that's honestly pretty damn good for, you know, a Banshee and all those units. But and also, he did manage to keep the Hellions alive. So I guess the damage is not done, over. The push is not over just quite yet. But still, I mean, the 3rd expansion's still alive. There's still like a relatively okay drone count. I mean, he's losing a lot more drones, which is actually a little bit scary. The Hellions actually moving in. This could be the opportunity for the Terran player to get the big damage in that he really wants to be able to do. And drones are starting to line up. Oh no, Midday losing a lot of drones over here. Oh no, reduced down to 27 drones. Hellions finally get cleaned up, but at what cost? So many drones have actually fallen by this point. And even though the Banshee's been taken out as well, you can see that right now, Midday is just trying to drone up like a madman, and he's only just barely ahead of his opponent. But here's the thing. His opponent, the Terran player, does have double upgrades on the way. He has a 3rd command center finished up. You take a look at where Midday is sitting. Yeah, he has a layer tech, but he doesn't really have any real tech besides this Hydralisk item going up. He has a double evolution chambers, but where are the... Well, actually, no, he did manage to research +1/+1 upgrades. So I take it back. Midday not necessarily in too bad of a position, considering I guess he does have tech, and he does also have the 1/1 ups. But how is it going to work out? Is he going to decide to put on a little bit of aggression, make a ton of units, and try and deny that 3rd expansion from easily going down? I mean, he did kill off pretty much the entire army of Bulugu, sorry. So he has the opportunity to, but is he going to really take it, or is he just going to say, you know what, I want to drone up and take to the late game? And it looks like that is going to be the answer. More and more drones just being made. 2-2 going to be started as well, and Midday is preparing for that late game. Banshee from Bulugu going to be moving in around the map, seeing what it can find. Viking also doing the same thing, looking for some overlords, but actually there's only this overlord. There's only 2 overlords out of the map. This is the overlord that was almost dead earlier on, that Bulugu tried to make an early marine with to try and snipe off. Didn't quite work out, and now the overlord is still living happily right next to the Terran natural expansion. It actually has some decent vision of when units decide to move out over that supply depot. And speaking of that vision, yeah, he does get good vision of everything going on over there. Midday does actually spot the overlord, so he could decide to try and kill it off and bring the Viking over. And yeah, he does stim up some of those marines, snipes off the overlord. Goodbye, overlord. You've done your purpose in life. Viking now going to be moving back, but take a look at where this game is starting to lead off to. We're going to have 2-2 finishing up relatively soon, but is it going to actually be in time for this push? Doesn't look like this. Push out from Bulugu with 1/1 upgrades going to be evenly matched against Midday's right now, but Midday just doesn't have that big of an army. He's still trying to pump out those roaches, still trying to pump out the units to get the big defense up. There aren't a lot of medevacs or actually even many marines or marauders in this push out though, so maybe it'll end up being okay for Midday as long as he doesn't allow this these units in this army from Bulugu to get into too good of a position. And looks like he's not going to allow that. Banshee gets taken out alongside the Overseer, providing that detection. And the entire army of Bulugu going to have to just back the heck out of there. Not able to make a whole lot of damage happen, but siege tanks now actually being produced. At least 2 siege tanks now produced. A 3rd one going to be on the way from that factory. So Bulugu just starting to mix in a couple of interesting units that are going to be able to do some nice damage. I know a lot of Terran players do like to make the siege tanks against the Roach Hydra composition just because Roaches and Hydrals, they honestly tend to clump up quite a bit, and they're still relatively slow units in comparison to things like Zerglings and whatnot. So the siege tanks can actually do some pretty good damage against Roaches. Nice defense over there as the Siege is going to ward those guys away, but Midday going to be happy to pull back, it looks like right now. Getting up the Galil Wait, actually, yeah, Galil Reconstitution, I believe, just got researched. So for a second I was like, wait a second, did he just research Overlord drop? No, nothing crazy like that. Midday just going to be pushing across the map, walking its way across the map. It doesn't need any Overlord drops to move across a map like this, which honestly isn't super duper huge. It's actually not that long of a distance for you to get your army across the map. The big concern is really going to be moving past his siege tanks through this kind of awkward little choke over here. As you can see, he's taking a lot of splash damage immediately. The Hydrals and the Roaches in the back trying to filter in. Manor Mule getting called down. I think it's a little bit premature for that, but he does manage to clean up the entire army of Midday, and that is going to be a little bit problematic for Midday. Right now, it's a 3-base Zerg versus a 3-base Terran player. An Infestation Pit is going down for Midday, but oh god, he just lost his entire army. And honestly, Bulugu, he lost some Marines and Marauders. The Marines and Marauders can be replaced. The Siege Tanks, the Medevacs, those are the units that are a little bit harder to replace. Even the Marauders, for the most part, he doesn't lose too many of them. He's only lost 2 this entire game. And at this point, Terran player going to just establish a 4th expansion. Midday does not have a 4th expansion going up just yet. Doesn't even seem to be thinking about it, or at least not laying it down just quite yet. Just going to be getting up the Infestation Pit, getting up the Pathogen Glands upgrade. So not going to be going straight up to high tech with this. It's saying, you know what, if I can lock down some of my opponent's units, I can just deal the big damage with those Hydralists. And we'll see if it pays off, because honestly, it wasn't like he was getting really kited that last engagement. I guess he just wants the extra damage straight up from the fungal growths, and that could very well work out well. I mean, Marines don't really have a whole lot of health. 2 fungal growths will pretty much murder a Marine. But is it going to really work out? We'll have to wait and see. Because the economy is the thing that's actually really scary right now for Midday, I feel. Because this isn't like a ZV or TVZ where he's like, oh, well, you know, I have Swarmos out and I'm okay with staying on even base with my opponent. Good job cleaning up the drop over here, but yeah, you know, generally a Zerg player does want to not necessarily be a full base up, but he wants to at least be keeping even. And right now, this 4th expansion has been going, or is going up right now. And yeah, Midday's 4th expansion is going up as well, but it still feels a little bit on the later side. He did invest in his Infestors just to ended up delaying that 4th expansion for a little bit longer. So we'll see if it pays off. He's moving across the map. His army, I mean, it could be set up for a great concave, but his army's a little bit filtered out right now. Siege Tanks has some time to siege up without taking too much damage, but fungal growths go down on top of all of the bio and all of the medevacs. The Hydral's now able to get right on top of the Siege Tanks. Same with the Roaches, actually, as well. And all of the Siege Tanks gonna get cleaned up. Midday actually takes a miraculously good engagement over there, taking a couple more medevacs. The 4th expansion gonna go down. A great engagement over here from Midday. And he is going to be able to push on over and through. No more energy for fungal growths, but does he actually need it right now? The Hydrals deal so much damage with the 2-2 upgrades. Getting able to take out the last remaining Siege Tank, as well as a good chunk of these SCVs. And that is a completely ravaged 4th Terran base. Now, if Midday is able to start mining over his own 4th expansion, he's going to be sitting to be in a much more comfortable position than he was earlier. Has that hive tech going up, so he's going to be able to go into, I honestly want to say, Ultralisk at this point, considering he has not a good melee upgrades, but he does have some good carapace upgrades, so he's going to be able to soak up a lot of those Marine hits. He doesn't really have a Spire up, I don't believe. No Spire up right now. So yeah, it'll be pretty nice to get that hive tech up and eventually transition into the Ultras, especially with the Infestors out. I feel like that is the big key thing that's going to allow him to really transition nicely into Ultras, but I don't even know if it's going to go to that point in the game, as he is just pushing on through. He's going for the Jugular, not going to the 3rd expansion, going straight up to the natural expansion, and he's going to be engaging this army on the ramp. A lot of these Roaches in the back not quite able to attack, but is it going to matter? He just has enough over here to charge on through the bunker. Gonna be helpful for Bulugu's defense, with some SCVs that have to be pulled off the line, and they just get murdered immediately. 44 SCVs left over, and Midday is starting to push on, and the Infestors have used up all their energy, but I don't even think it's gonna be needed at this point. Siege Tank trying to hold up that defense, but Bulugu now getting stormed in. No SCVs mining to natural. Midday has the 4th expansion starting to mine. He's just popping out more and more units and rallying them straight across the map. Sure, this army looks like it may start to get cleaned up just a little bit, but I mean, the economic losses for Bulugu have been taken already, and guess what? This third expansion not going to be safe for very long, because Midday can honestly just position the most of his army over here, send 2 or 3 roaches down to the third expansion, and boom, that third expansion is just going to be shut down entirely. Not even going to be bothering with that. He's going to use every single one of his units that he has available to push in over here and try and take the win, take the victory from Bulugu. And Midday from Team Complexity Gaming looking pretty strong in the awesome game of the day. But at this point, yeah, it looks like it's just going to be a matter of time before Bulugu, well, I want to say taps out, but he's still holding on and holding strong with just the reinforcing units that he gets out. But no, realizes that the efforts are futile and is going to go ahead and tap out of the game. Midday taking the awesome game of the day. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that one. We're going to be jumping back over to the interview segment, so we'll see you guys there. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that awesome game of the day. We still have another segment after this, so don't go anywhere. After this is kind of wrapping up with the shoutouts and everything. We still have the embarrassing segment where Midday is actually going to cry of embarrassment. I'm looking forward to that. He is not. But for now, let's talk a little bit more about your kind of future right now. Why are you interested in StarCraft? What are you looking to get out of StarCraft? Are you just looking for the big results? Are you looking for the pay, the money? Are you looking for like the fame and the glory? What do you want out of StarCraft?
It's like I've always been playing games, right? I feel like StarCraft is the most meaningful one that I play. The word I use to describe to the people at IG is that it's a very noble game, in the regard that it's such a dense game, and I think it's a really, really cool thing to learn. And people who don't play the game or anything like that don't. And this is a friend I was talking to. He's just like, I just wish people understood just how difficult it is to be good at this game, and I just want to be one of those people that's really good. One thing that always kind of inspired me was in tournaments, when somebody wins and they hold a trophy and everybody's cheering for them, you know, of course everybody wishes that could be done, but I'm in a way trying to make it happen. I always thought, you know, everybody was always talking about the money, and I never really paid much mind to the money, no pun intended. But I always just cared about having a trophy, so hopefully can make it happen. But in other words, kind of the fame and glory, and also something that basically a very good hobby to have, or rather not just a hobby, but you know, whatever the word is. You guys know what I'm getting at.
Well, I'm actually going to make you spell this out, man, because my next question is, like, would you ever consider going full-time, making this more than a hobby, as so to speak?
No, because as stupid as this sounds, and it sounds stupid, but I don't think anybody will ever disagree with me, it's riskier to go full-time into esports than it is to go part-time. It's not that I don't think I can do it with the risk involved. It's just that this is something that I want for myself too, right? I want a degree in school, and I want to go deep in school as well. And I want a job as, like, you know, because I take music in university, I want a job as like maybe a professor or something like that, because that's such a safe, stable job. And it's an enjoyable one too for me. And it also has, you know, benefits, stuff like that. So I want that job too. And I'm just trying to do two things at once. I don't think there'll ever be a point where in the future I'm saying, man, I should have focused on one thing. If that time ever does come and I did make mistakes along the way, the only thing I'll be saying to myself is I should have had better time management.
To me, what you're saying sounds more like you're not saying that you're not interested in, you know, putting a lot into this whole pro gaming kind of StarCraft thing. You're just not convinced that it has to be all one or the other. You can do both.
Yeah.
I can definitely appreciate that as someone also working full time, while also trying to do stuff in esports. So good luck to you, man. It's gonna be a rough road, but I believe you can do it with some hard work and dedication.
Thanks.
I think you may have to work a little bit harder than I do, though. But I'm gonna actually ask you the hardest question, which is the question I ask at the end of every interview. Why are you worth rooting for? Why should people, when you win that big trophy, you get that big win at, say, a DreamHack or a Red Bull, and you're holding it up over the audience, why should people be cheering for you?
That's an easy question to answer. the same reason why people cheer for anybody else that isn't anything special. Not to say that I'm not special, but like everything else considered, like assume everything else is even. They cheer out of respect. Applause is a very special thing, and considering I'm a musician, applause is something that obviously is very. It happens a lot in music, and when people cheer and clap when people do plays, it's because they say that's respect. That's their way of saying that's respectful. So whenever somebody wins something or anything, and people cheer, it's not because they love the person or because it's their fan. In my opinion, anyways, it's because if they're not their fan, it's because everybody else is doing it, and if they are their fan, or rather, if they're in the middle, then it's because it's just out of respect for skill.
Well, with that being said, that was the final question. We're done with the interview portion. Now, don't go anywhere, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to be doing shout-outs, but that does not mean that the show is ending. We still have that final last segment that's going to be coming up right after this. But in the meanwhile, Midday, where can people catch you and your team at?
My team, complexitygaming.com. Me, I don't tweet as much as maybe I shouldn't tweet a lot, but follow me on Twitter. Let's go with that. At Cole_Midday, COL_Midday.
And you can also catch a stream over at twitch.tv/Midday19.
Yeah.
Is that because you're 19 years old? Or was Midday 1 through 18 taken?
Long story. I don't feel comfortable explaining half the story. So long story.
Okay, we're gonna avoid that one then. But ladies and gentlemen, hopefully you guys enjoyed the show. If you did enjoy the show, please do consider following the channel over here on twitch.tv/FearDragon64 and youtube.com/FearDragon64 for all of the VODs. And of course, all the links that both Midday and I mentioned should be over in the Twitch chat right now. If you're watching this on Team Liquid, you still have maybe a little bit of time. Go quickly click through so you can see the chat and click on all the glorious links of Midday's stream and Twitter, etc. And,
did the 64 come from Nintendo 64?
It does, because the Nintendo 64 was the best console ever. But yeah, and of course, if you're watching this on YouTube, all those links are just down below the video. So guys, thank you all so much for tuning in. Enjoy the remainder of the awesomely amazing, embarrassing segment with Midday. Hey everyone, welcome to the embarrassing segment here on Breaking Out, where we embarrass the hell out of players and make them regret ever coming on the show. I'm joined here once again by that familiar face, Midday. How you doing today, man?
Good.
I can tell that you're actually really excited for this. You seem really enthusiastic.
No. It's just weird. I think mine will be relatively unique though.
Okay, awesome. Well, I'm looking forward to that. But for anyone who's not sure what we're talking about, the embarrassing segment is where we actually completely by force. Like I said, Midday, look, I'm gonna throw away the rest of the footage for the show if you don't actually do this. To do a unit impersonation for 30 seconds. So they're allowed to do whatever kind of unit they want. Like, if you really want to, you can pick like a Mutalisk or something, like eating a hot dog or whatever. So, Midday, what unit did you pick to do?
The Corruptor.
The Corruptor. Okay, that is pretty unique. That's actually like one of the units you don't really think about that much. So, all right, man, let's go ahead and get started. I'm excited to see what this is going to be like.
The most boring, no longer most boring unit. Okay. Okay.
All right, that was beautiful. Okay, that was beautiful. Were you spitting out like a Corruptor acid with the water?
Yeah. I don't know.
Oh man, well that's wonderful. Guys, hopefully you guys decide to check out Midday. We already did the shout-out, so check in the chat for all of those links or down below the YouTube video. Thank you so much for tuning in to Breaking Out, and we'll see you guys tomorrow.